It's Friday, February 14th, 2025. Start off as we typically do by telling you that if you'd like to support our show, it's very easy. All you have to do is go to supportourshow.com. That's simple. One address, lots of support options. The world is your oyster in terms of supporting us. Everything outside of that we can't control. But it's something I wanted to mention off the top because I've been enjoying the crap out of it. And this is a very, very, very specific thing. Most people probably have zero interest, but I've always been a fan of pool. I can't play it very well, but I've always loved it. I spent many great years when I was younger just hanging around a pool hall, playing terribly, but just enjoying seeing people who were really good at it.
Yeah, but the thing is, pool isn't about being good, I'm convinced. Because there's professional pool that you watch. Right? I think there's 3 tiers of pool. There's professional pool that you watch, that you're like, damn, those guys are good. Then there's I almost want to call it like heist pool, where it's like watching people get taken by
hustle. It's a
hustler pool. Yeah.
Color of money pool.
Yeah, exactly. Which I have seen once or twice, and it's I've never been on the receiving end because I would never do that in the pool hall.
No, I would never be so foolish as to ever take on anybody.
To go against anybody. Yeah. And then there's the pool that you play with your friends, and usually it's like, pool is like smoking. You know, when you had in college when we had friends who sat around, they smoked, and you would just hang out outside, and they would smoke cigarettes, and you would like talk and shit like that. Pool is like that. It's something to do that's like very mildly competitive, depending on how you do it, where you can just talk and drink and passively do something, and it creates a very neat vibe, and the atmosphere is very cool because usually they have like these really pool halls. If it's not in a bar, if you actually go to like a pool hall, it's usually dark, and they have the lights like right on the pool tables, so it was like kind of a neat vibe. What was the place? Didn't you bring us to like a neon pool hall once?
Oh yeah, like I don't remember what the name of it
pool
was,
hall.
But yes. Oh yeah.
I think I remember
that was a big thing for a while. Probably still is. Just like bowling has that too. The midnight or blacklight bowling, where it's all blacklit.
Oddly,
I think everybody does a version of that.
Oddly, I wish I just like normal pool. I like blacklight bowling, but I like normal pool.
Yeah.
But yes, sorry, go on.
So I was going to say that I have become a regular viewer of the Women's Professional Billiard Association YouTube channel, which is awesome because unlike the men's stuff where there's all this posturing and macho BS within pool, the women's ones, they just play the game. They're just playing. There's no dramatic anything. Nobody's, doing anything except trying to play the best stuff that they can. And so I just wanted to point out that they have great streams that are very, very kind of low-level curated, where it's very clear that the people, the one woman in particular, what is her name? I think it's Lonnie Fox Raymond is her name. She's clearly managing all the streams herself, which I have so much sympathy for because it is not easy to do live streaming stuff. So when she's having problems, I'm like, oh, if only I could tell you, here's what you have to do. But and you can support it directly. You can like donate on the streams, which I have done, but it's great. And like I said, it's no BS. It's just if you enjoy pool and you just want to see the game played by people who are experts at it, who are not trying to, again, be, jumping up and down or making, eyes at each other or anything. They all know each other. They all get along, and they're all just trying to play the best game they can.
So this is like wrestling without the drama.
Exactly. It's exactly that. But but really it is amazing because again, I don't have the head for it. Pool is so much about it's very similar to chess, where you have to be thinking 3 or 4 balls ahead, and you have to be able to see angles. And I just have no structure in my brain for that. I can't think moves ahead. I can't angle anything. When I played pool, I was literally only just trying to make the one ball in front of me without I could not think a placement, all that is just beyond me. So I've always been amazed by people who can think strategically that way. Same thing with chess players. That's why I like chess, but I'm terrible at it. I cannot.
Oh yeah,
think
because there's
ahead.
a whole master plan you have to have going into it.
Absolutely, you have to be able to.
Oh man, but here's the thing: if you loved something like that and you did it enough, you would then become someone whose brain did that. The thing is, you have to want to do it enough that you become that good at it.
Well, I also think you have to be able to. I mean, I guess with chess, you could probably learn to be that way playing against a computer now because the computer opponents are so good.
But in general,
but you can't do that with pool. I mean, you can't.
Yeah, but
I'd have to go to a pool hall and work at it.
That's what I mean. It's like if you want to be a great swimmer, you go to find a pool and you swim. If you want to become a great runner, you run. We all start out shit, right? And then you get better at it. Listen, it's when I first started lifting or when I started like working out, it was a joke compared to the stuff I do now. I actually stop sometimes and look at like my workout routine now and go, holy shit, this would have crippled me just like a decade ago. And it's like, well, this is what I do now. This is what I built up to. And it's all just building up to. So like the thing is that I think many of us are it's such a long way that we just don't want to start. It's the whole I should have started this when I was 15 or something shit like that. But when you're a kid, you don't know any better. But the thing is that if you like something, then it's just do it. And that's the thing. Find a pool hall. Go play pool.
I know that I don't have the drive to be that good.
Well, that's really what it is. It's the drive.
For me, it was just fun. I just like the game, and I'm very happy to vicariously watch these players. And the thing is, one of the things I like the best about watching this stuff in general is I really don't care who wins, and and honestly, it's one of the best things is to not really care. I just want to see whoever does the best that day wins.
You're there for the love of the sport. You're like, oh man,
exactly.
Look at that person play. Oh wow, that's amazing. Yeah. No, I get that. I get that.
Yeah, it was.
Well, it's like me watching. Was it the Olympics? It's like I can't tell how often I'm watching the Olympics. I sit there and I go, these people are amazing, and I'm like, I don't know who I'm rooting for. I'm just kind of watching it, going, oh my god, look at this shit. This is awesome. Right. And then like you get kind of riled up into the underdog, right, type of thing. But it's you're just amazed by the. I think there was a Taekwondo match. I think it was Taekwondo, or was it? It was one of the martial arts matches where it was the team. It was, I don't know, the keto or something like that. But like it was a team effort, and it came down to the last member of the team was the decider, and it was like these two really big guys, and I was just mesmerized by the combat or the sport combat between them. So it's like. I totally get that idea of I like to watch this be done, and I don't care necessarily who wins or who loses. Right. I'm just watching the action of it.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what it is. So I just wanted to point that out because, like I said, it's. I've watched some of the men's matches, which isn't to say that the men's stuff isn't, the skill is there, but it's much more posturing than I care for.
I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm just going to say I would much rather watch women do just about any sport or activity than men.
Well, that's generally true, yeah.
And that is because I like looking at women. And there is always less macho bullshit.
It does seem that way, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and like I like watching women's rugby, because there's a lot less macho bullshit. Although, actually, weirdly, rugby is one of the few sports I've watched where the men's and the women's are not that far apart. You know,
Sure. Yeah. There's sports
but
like that.
I would always much rather watch women do stuff. Yeah,
I haven't
there's a lot.
watched much professional basketball, but men's and women's basketball seems very similar to me. When I've watched it, it's there doesn't seem to be a
Oh, I think
difference
there's a lot.
in
I
terms
think
of
there's
how
a
they
lot more
compete.
male attitude. I've seen a few things in basketball where it's like you've got a lot of egos in there.
Well,
I think actually
I think
that's
women's has that too. I
Do
think
they?
there is a
Do they
lot of
have
that. Yeah,
All
I
right,
mean,
then
I don't
maybe I
know
just
if it's
haven't seen
as I don't know if it's as widespread because obviously men's
Okay.
basketball has been in the
Well,
spotlight for far longer. But
here's the thing, right? If you're and this is not a put down, but the thing is, if you're a star, a male basketball star, like everybody knows you. People who don't even play basketball know of you. You know what I mean? Like I don't follow men's basketball, but I know who LeBron James is, right? I know who the stars are. But like I'm going to tell you right now, I can't tell you a female basketball star. I just can't.
I
And
can't
it's-
remember the names. But if somebody said
You know,
one, I would know. Some of
But
them.
that doesn't mean that I find it to be far more enjoyable to watch. And I think that's because you're not rooting for anybody. I think it's because you're watching
Yeah.
the sport be played and you're like, oh, this is
Yeah.
great. There's
Yeah.
no characters that I have to get behind.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that's kind of it.
No.
So, yeah, just want to point it out because, like I said, it's. I like the fact that I mean, I on one hand I don't like the fact of how kind of almost homegrown it is because that clearly means that they don't have enough money to be able to afford the bigger stuff, and that kind of sucks. But on the other side of it, when you're in the chat and stuff, you can actually talk to the players and they'll respond to you and everything. So it's got that kind of more intimate
More
nature
accessible.
to it. Yeah. But I don't like it because it's very clear that, they're like run on the edge of not being able to even have the money to do the stream. It's kind of like the same thing that bums me out about the Olympics athletes when you find out how much they struggle to even be able to practice. And these are the people
in the
who are supposed
US,
to,
yeah. And like most
yeah,
countries
it's
support their
pathetic.
athletes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Most countries support their people, but that's a separate topic. Let's not start down that road, or it's going to be a very happy show.
No. It'll be a
But like
very
I said,
happy show.
it's a source of joy for me because it's just so laid back and fun, and like I said, no egos. You can just enjoy people who, at least in my case, it's one of those sorcery skills to me that, yes, of course, I know if I wanted to learn it, I probably could, but being so far from the people at the professional level, it is like wizardry to me, so I enjoy watching it.
Well, it is. Oh man, when you see someone really good at anything, it almost becomes like wizardry. Like when I see you draw, right, and just whip stuff out, that's like wizardry to me because I can see beautiful designs in my head, but I can't actuate them. And I will try, and and it never comes out the way I want it to, and that's the thing. So, but when I remember when you did the I think a Photoshop stream or drawing stream for kids, and you did one for my kids. I think that's where you started. You did these, and watching that and watching the way you just randomly draw stuff, and then be like, okay, we're just gonna erase that now and start over. Like maybe we'll put this here. Like we'll erase that. We'll put something else. I was looking at that and I was like, Jesus, that's like wizardry to me because it's like you can so quickly present the object in your mind, and it might not be exactly what you see in your head, but others know what it is right away. Do you know what I mean? And that seems like magic to me. Yeah. So when you see some of these people do the things that they do, I mean, listen, say what you will about Michael Jordan. I don't really follow basketball, but Michael Jordan, like that when that guy dunked, it was like fucking amazing. Like, I don't even care about basketball, and that guy did do some amazing shit to me. Not to me personally.
I know what you mean. Amazed you with what he could do. Is what you meant.
But yeah, so it's that thing. Yeah, anyone who is proficient at their area of interest can often amaze others.
Yeah.
If you're capable, because there's some people who are like, if it's not what I do, I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? There's some people that are like that. But
yeah.
But yeah, it's I guess you have to have that kind of the empathy of respect to be like, I respect this person for what they can do, and it is amazing. Regardless of whether it's something that I have an interest in, it is still amazing.
Yeah, recognition of skill, even if you have no interest in the skill, is a thing.
Yeah, I mean, there was that guy. Remember the guy who broke the 2-hour marathon, and they were like, "Oh well, yeah, but he was wearing special shoes, and it was ideal conditions, and he had like special runners with him to block the wind, and like it was the most stacked situation you could have to break a 2-hour marathon, right?"
Yeah.
But that said, he broke a 2-hour fucking marathon. It's amazing. Period. He didn't do it with robotic legs. Yes, he had carbon fiber shoes. I was like, but he still had to move his fucking body that fast. And what I love about that is somebody built this this giant treadmill that goes at the pace that guy ran. I can't remember his name. Was it Jehugi or something like that? I can't remember his name. But they built this giant treadmill. You can find this on YouTube. They built this giant treadmill that basically holds the pace that you would have to hold to run like a sub 2-hour marathon, and they had random people go on it. It's padded for a reason, and it's amazing to watch. I mean, first layman, non-runner people try and even get to the pace, and then actual runners desperately try to hold on to it before getting thrown off this thing, and you're like, yeah, it's fucking amazing. And I think that I just hate it when we find a way to kind of make it not amazing. You know what I mean? We're like, well,
Sure. Yeah.
He had this and he had that. And I'm like, no, it's still amazing that he did it at all. Regardless of whether it was the official time or whatnot. That guy ran, you could give me every special condition you want. I'm not even fucking making, I don't know if I can finish a marathon.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, I think that it's okay to be impressed. It's okay to be, even if you don't like it, it's okay to be impressed, to say, oh, that's pretty amazing. So yeah. Do you have any other programming notes before we
No,
get lost?
that was my little opener, because I've been meaning to mention it for 3 or 4 shows now, and I tend to forget, and then it doesn't really fit into anything else, but I did want to mention it because I was watching one of the stream, and the nice part is all that stuff is on there, so you can go back and watch these matches, and there are a ton of them. So 9-ball, 8-ball, everything.
I used to like watching celebrity poker, and I think it's because I liked watching the personalities and what they think they can pull off.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think the thing is, like, watching normal poker, I didn't know the people, so I wasn't that interested in the personalities. Whereas, like, if it's actors or comedians or people that you know of, you have some minor angle on their personality, so you like to see what they do in these situations.
Yeah, sure.
It's almost like a psych experiment. Do we have any email in the bag before we continue on? We'll do all our programming stuff up front.
You know what? Actually, now that you say that, hold on. Did somebody send me something
any more marriage proposals?
No marriage proposals, but hold on. Not this week. I thought there was something I was supposed to tell you about. Hold
photos. Anybody wants photos of your feet?
No, shockingly, nobody.
I wonder what makes sexy feet. My wife said to me the other day, she was like, we should just make an OnlyFans of feet, because I mean that's like a big thing right now. And I was like, I don't think I have sexy feet. Like and it makes you wonder, like, what is sexy? Well, because like what's his name? Tarantino loves Uma Thurman's feet.
So does Coop. Coop loves all feet.
I know, but even you can't love them all. There's a hierarchy of feet for these people.
Well,
there's always going to be something that you like.
You know what?
But like, I don't. I remember when I was watching Kill Bill, there's that scene where she's trying to move her feet, and I was looking at Uma Thurman's feet, and I was like, why do you dig these? I was like, what is it about these feet that you dig? Like, I'm so because when I can't understand something, I desperately try to figure it out. But because this is like, this is a kink. This is something that it's like I can empathize with it, but I can't figure it out.
I want to say the other night I saw something where some woman had her feet out, and I kind of looked at her feet and I was like, oh, okay. Like, there's something about the foot ankle to like shin ratio. I'm like, I kind of sort of see the beginnings of it. It's not going to ever get that far for me, but
I've never looked at a woman's feet.
Yeah, there was something.
Thought those are sexy feet.
I don't know what it was, but I did see something where I'm like, oh, it's kind of like
honestly,
to be honest, the 3D pictures that you used to look at and only certain people could see them.
Oh yeah.
It was kind of like that, where for a second I saw it, and then it just went back into static. I was like,
after I got very serious into like foot health and I learned all this stuff about essentially how we we twist our feet into horrible shapes and how it's completely unhealthy for us. I suddenly lost my ability to find most people's feet anything but horrifying.
Sure.
Because most people take their feet off and then you realize that they've been crushing their feet into like this inhuman shape.
I've never taken my foot off, but I get your point.
No, when they take their shoes off. Sorry,
I know, it's just great.
Yeah, when they take their shoes off, I see, especially ballerinas. Oh my God, those are fucking frightening.
Yeah.
My sister did ballet for a short while, and I remember it really fucking massacred her feet. Like to this day, they're pretty twisted, and it goes back to ballet. And I wonder, does that make it more enticing to a person with a foot fetish, or is it are within the realm of the foot fetish, people have their specific foot kinks? Where there's people that are like, I like twisted toes, and there's people that are like, I like big, wide gorilla feet, and there's people who are like, I wonder if
no, there's definitely a thing to it, because
there's a pantheon within it.
Yeah, because like who posts dirty feet? Just where the soles
I've seen that before. Yeah, it was the comedian. What's his name? Chappelle. Chappelle likes dirty feet.
Okay, yeah.
I remember him saying that somewhere.
There's something.
He likes dirty hippie girl feet.
Yeah, there's something to that. I don't know what it is, but there's something.
It's interesting.
That's
very interesting. Sorry, we got totally lost on this. What were we talking about?
How did we get to the foot thing?
I don't know. I was on OnlyFans.
No, we said that we went from pool to. God, how did we get to the foot thing?
Sorry.
Because you said, was there anything else? Oh, you said, were there any marriage proposals? Anybody asking for pictures of my feet? That's what it was. There. Got it. We've Columboed our way to what the source was. We started with the feet thing, and we had to reverse engineer how we got there. So.
God.
We're the Columbo of foot fetishists. Thank you. So no, I have nothing else. The only thing I wanted to lead off with was women's pool.
Oh, cool. I recently watched the first Godzilla movie. Not like the first Godzilla reboot.
Oh, not 1954.
Cranston,
you're talking about
the Cranston.
Yeah. Okay. You're talking about like 2000.
I'm in a desperate. I don't want to have to watch Aliens vs Predator with my kids, right? That's really what it is.
You're throwing out all the chaff for the missile that is Aliens vs.
I am. So like last week, I managed to throw it off. We watched Ghost in the Shell. This weekend, we were supposed to watch it again, and this time I was like, "What the fuck can I watch instead of this? Because I do not want to watch
movie chaff. What is there?"
And I was like, "Ooh, monsters!" And then we had never watched. They watched. Was it Godzilla vs King Kong? And they never watched any ones before that. And I was like, hey, there's a bunch of monster movies before that we can watch. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah. And then we started looking at trailers. And they wanted to start with, was it Godzilla, was it All Monsters? What is that one called?
King of the Monsters.
And I was like, no. It's like, let's go back and start from the beginning. That way we get plenty of weekends of not watching Aliens vs. Predator. And my daughter doesn't realize that I'm trying to save her. She's like, she really wants to see a movie with the xenomorph. And I'm like, you don't understand. I was like, this is the worst xenomorph movie. It's like, this is not the one you want to start with. Yeah. Like, wait till you get a little older and we can watch the one that will scare the fuck out of you. But either way, so we watched the first. We watched the first Godzilla, even though the King Kong movie is technically goes before that, because it's the whole same way that Captain America: The First Avenger technically comes before.
Yes.
But they wanted to see Godzilla, so we watched that one, and it was an interesting experience because I had forgotten that the first Godzilla movie is like 75% people, and then only like 25% Godzilla, and honestly, not even. It's like 5% Godzilla, and then 20% the Mutos,
and then 5% of
yeah. Godzilla. And the weird fucking thing is, I forgot how much they cut away from the fights.
Yeah.
Like the monsters will start to fight, and all of a sudden you'll see footage of it on a TV, and they'll be somewhere else, and you're like,
yeah. There's literally a thing where the Muto punches Godzilla, and they close the ambulance doors as it happens, or something like that. Right as the thing slugs it. Yeah.
It's really strange, and I realized that it's almost like that's two movies. Like the first part of that movie is the Cranston mystery, right? where he's trying to find out what really happened at the plant, and it's very sort of creepy. And the thing is, I had forgotten that part was as good as it is. I mean, I love Cranston. He's
it's
a great actor.
It's
and
great.
I wish that there was more of that. You know what I mean? Like, I wish there was a bigger mystery, or that they hadn't just killed him off halfway through the movie.
The thing is, okay, so what I know is there's I think 3 fan edits that I have to watch.
Yeah.
And all 3 of them basically cut the middle way down, so that you have almost the whole bit with Cranston is pretty much intact. Yeah. Then they cut massive chunks out of the human parts so that you really think you see more of Godzilla when you really don't.
Yeah.
And then they do the whole ending. So I think it cut like 40 minutes out.
And that's the thing, is that the first part with Cranston is like a great kind of mystery movie, and then it becomes a disaster film with the military getting involved. It almost turns into a Michael Bay movie at that point. Where they're like, what
Michael
are we going to do?
Chock full of amazing coincidences where
that one guy
just happens to be everywhere.
Yeah, I told my kids, I was like, when after Cranston died, I said, this guy right here, I was like, he's going to show you what the worst look in the world looks like. And that was it. He had the worst luck all the way through. He was everywhere he shouldn't have been, which has got to be some kind of special ability right there. But yeah, you get so little. And even at one point, my daughter, who had watched who'd watched the King Kong, both the King Kong Godzilla movies, was like, why doesn't he just breathe fire? And I was like, this was the reboot. They were like waiting to and I was like, think of it like he wasn't ready to use it yet. Maybe he hadn't soaked up enough radiation. I don't know.
I will say, though, not using it does make the point where he starts to use it unbelievable.
Oh, when he does.
He's powering up. It is so great.
Yeah, when he finally uses it, he melts that one thing in the fucking mouth, and its head just falls off.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you know what the problem is? I thought there was more of a fight after that. But the second he starts breathing fire, both the movies are fucking done.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's why he couldn't do it for most of it, because the problem is
it would have been
really,
done.
Yeah, Godzilla is so overmatched for anything except for kind of the big other monsters that humans have no chance. I mean, King Kong has no chance unless there's a huge
King Kong had to get a special weapon to deflect his
he had to get one of his own fins to do it.
Yeah, and then I thought they did a pretty good job in the last, there's a Dark Empire. I thought they did a pretty good job of that, because they had a creature that had a different kind
Empire? Is it Dark Empire? What is the name of it?
I think is it Dark Empire?
New Empire. The New Empire.
New Empire. Yeah, I thought they did a pretty good job, because they had multiple monsters. I mean, it was Godzilla versus a shit ton of King Kongs, and then one really big one, and then another one and then basically an ice Godzilla. So I was like, no, they did a good job of ramping it up. But to go back and watch the first one, it is interesting, because you watch it and you think, you understand now this is like the beginning of a bigger monster universe, right? And it's amazing to think that they're still making them. I mean, and that they're getting better.
Right.
It's like, but I do like it. I still like it quite a bit. I just think that it is so fascinating how it's so much more about the humans, and so much more like the monsters. They miraculously make the monsters like a background element, or maybe, and I think what it is they're trying to. I think maybe they were trying to just show you what it would look like from a human point of view. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Well, and this director, this is the guy who did Monsters, which was famously the thing where you really didn't see the monsters. It was
shit! That makes so much more sense. Yeah, I'd totally forgotten that.
Yeah, because the movie Monsters. It's largely the people. I mean, it's
about the people, and the monsters are the background sort of event. Yes.
Yes.
Man, I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, so that's what they.
And then he didn't do any.
The person known for that.
He didn't do any more after that, right?
I think he did the second one, didn't he? Or it was the second guy. I don't remember. I'm trying to hold on. Let me check. That guy, Gareth Edwards, is the guy's name.
Yes. And I liked Monsters. I thought Monsters was a really good movie. But it's like a very subtle flick, though.
No, you're right. He did. The next guy took over and then did the next 3. That's what it was. So they changed it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I really like the first Godzilla. The problem is the middle drags. but I don't mind how little he's in it. I know a lot of people got really wound up about that. I never really minded that because I do think that when you then get to the end and he's doing all the normal stuff, then it hits harder. So I don't mind this as because the thing people have to remember, or at least what I think people should remember, is that the last Godzilla that most Americans knew,
the 80s one,
was the 90s one with what's his face with Ferris Bueller.
Oh
That's
shit!
terrible.
Sorry, the 90s one, yeah.
Which
I thought that was in the 80s, but you're right. Yeah, that was and it wasn't even Godzilla. They were like, no, that's Zilla.
Yeah, they had to rename him because it was such an embarrassment.
Yes.
But so that's what I think they were trying to. They were trying to do two things. One, erase people's memory of that, and two, I do think it does partially recapture some of the horror of the original, where,
well,
by the time you get to Godzilla versus Kong, it's all fun. Like now, it's just comic books.
I was trying to explain to my kids how the first Godzilla movies were basically about atomic panic. It was about the reaction to being essentially nuked by the Japanese.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, and right. the idea of the nuclear threat. And that's why it's funny that suddenly, Godzilla is in the U.S. because we were the nuclear threat. But no, it's a really good flick. I think it holds up. And I hadn't seen it in a while. And it is fascinating how different the newer ones are to this one. And the thing is, I'm not saying any one is better. They're just completely different animals. Like, this is like a true disaster monster film. Whereas the later ones, I mean, the fucking last one, when they have the no gravity monster fight under the earth, and King Kong's got a Godzilla axe, and then you've got so many. I mean, if you think about the amount of large scale monsters involved in that fight, because you got like 20 King Kongs, then you've got with it Mothra and Godzilla and the ice thing, and then the big orangutan looking guy. I mean, like it's a massive amount of monsters, and you almost start to lose track of the fact that they're all huge because there's so many of them.
Yes.
But my son is really hopeful that there's going to be some kind of Jaegers in the next one. And I was like, I don't know. I don't hold your breath. I was like, I don't think we're going to get there quite yet. But I want it.
The next one, you know what?
Space Godzilla.
It would be interesting because
it's got to be Space Godzilla.
Well, okay. No, I don't. I think Space Godzilla is going to be in the next Japanese one based on what that movie, Godzilla -1. Which
Really?
I've said this before. One of the things I like is now they've basically established that, okay, the Japanese Godzilla movies are going to be the horror, and the American movies are going to be Michael Bayhem. And that's fine, because I do tend to like Godzilla as a cartoon character as much as I like him as a real horrific character. And I think the Japanese will always have a better handle on that because it's their trauma, not ours.
Yeah.
So I do like the idea of, literally if somebody erects a giant wrestling ring and they start doing suplexes on each other, I'm fine. I never minded the fact that Godzilla did a across the planet drop kick thing where he was flying. None of that stuff bothers me. So I think Space Godzilla is going to be Godzilla -1's next move. What he'll look like, and I'm of a split mind here.
He looked like, I mean, the pictures you've shown me, it's Godzilla with like crystal shoulder pads.
Really and this is where I have this split. Because Space Godzilla, to me, I don't know how, because I think the Japanese films, if they're going to keep in the Godzilla -1 kind of direction, Space Godzilla would make Godzilla, the regular vanilla Godzilla, into a heroic figure, or at least not a villain. And so it's tricky to have other monsters unless they're going to team up. Because if you want to keep Godzilla as the villain, it would make more sense to bring Mothra in as the protector. Mothra's always been a good person, a good character. She's always been a protector. Yeah. So it would make more sense that Godzilla shows up again in the next movie.
But didn't Mothra always have an effect on Godzilla that made Godzilla less?
Yes, and that's the thing, is she either would outright stop him or she would enchant him with her Mothra Wiles. And then he would be like, "Oh, no, really." I mean, it's always basically been that the two of them, like he's into her. or something. So I don't know. That's always been the thing, is like Mothra will show up, flap the wings, and Godzilla just goes, oh. You know, like a belly dance or something. He just becomes like docile.
It's like what was it, Black Widow doing the little thing to Hulk?
Yeah.
The sun's getting really low, man.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And so, again, if you want to keep Godzilla as the villainous character, then when he comes back, since the humans can't really do anything to him, then you have Mothra show up as the planetary protector. And then you have Godzilla versus Mothra. That's what makes sense to me if you want to keep Godzilla as the villain. Space Godzilla is Godzilla but worse. So you by default, I mean it is, you by default move Godzilla into either a anti-hero role or he's now a positive. So to me that makes more sense in
and that's kind of what
Gonzo
they do with
American
him.
movies.
Yeah, that's what the Cranston movie, essentially that's how they use him, which is that he's a destructive force, but we think that he's the equalizer, which in that he'll destroy these monsters and then he'll most likely fuck off.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the idea. And so then, that's what I mean. It's interesting to think where they take the character, because I could see Kong and Godzilla teaming up against Space Godzilla very easily.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
but the
that
whole
makes
idea
a lot
is
of sense.
they in the Bayham Godzilla movies, they have an unholy peace because one of them's under the ground and one of them's above the ground. And as long as they stick to their different levels, everything's okay. But I love how we've talked about this, the second King Kong comes topside, fucking Godzilla's like, you're done.
Nope. It just starts running at him. Yeah,
right through the pyramid, right?
Yes.
Oh,
So that's what I mean about, to me, Space Godzilla makes more sense in the American films than it does in... And look, I love Space Godzilla, so I don't care where he shows up. I think Space Godzilla is a riot.
Let's hope they do a better job of his look than some the...
I don't mind that look.
No. That's what I'm saying. Remember, they did Mechagodzilla, and it looked like shit.
Oh yeah, no.
That's what I mean. You have to accept the fact that there is the possibility they can make it look quite badly. So I hope that they let it be a little bit weird and cheesy.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you there. Now the only interesting part of that is that if I remember correctly, Space Godzilla doesn't just come out of space. I think he's also
the alternate dimension.
Well, Biollante is a clone of Godzilla that went wrong, and there's never been an official that I'm aware of canon reason why Space Godzilla evolved in space. So the theories are that it's either Biollante cells that went into space and got cosmicized, or that Mothra somehow shot his cells into space. I never liked the Mothra one. That always seemed kind of weird to me. I never really understood that. The Biollante one makes more sense because Biollante is already a perverted clone of Godzilla.
I like the idea that maybe there are, what do you call them? Not Kenji. What do they call them? Kaiju. That there are kaiju on other planets. And that this kaiju is a super alpha predator and has discovered a super alpha predator on another planet, and he's coming for him.
That's what Ghidorah is, a space alien.
Yeah, there you go.
He always has been. That's Planet X. So that's the Astro Monster from Planet X is Ghidorah. So, or Ghidra. I can never remember what you're supposed to say. Whatever. I like Ghidorah better. Whatever it's supposed to be, or Ghidra. So yeah, they've already established that. But the whole reason that they wanted him to look like Godzilla. So that's how you explain why an alien looks. This is kind of the Star Trek problem.
It's funny that
why does Space Godzilla look the same?
It's funny that they decided to take Ghidorah out in like the second movie.
Well, yes, but they can bring him back because they've got his head, so they can basically. Well, look, my secret hope. No indication has been given of this, but I would love to see Mecha Ghidorah come back because I loved Mecha Ghidorah in the originals.
Mecha Ghidorah.
Yeah, have you ever seen what Mecha Ghidorah looks like?
Yes, I have.
He's mostly cyborg, so
yeah,
you could easily because that's at the end of King of the Monsters. I think it's in the credits scene, you see that they've got the head, and the head is what's powering Mechagodzilla, the skeleton, the skull. So, look, these are cartoon films. You can bring anybody back, but I would love to see him come back.
They're big. they're big monster films.
Oh,
That's what they
yeah,
are.
it's
So-
that's why I don't mind them being dumb. I know, because we often complain about how movies are so dumb now.
No, but
this is
they
one of
can
those
be,
where I like dumb.
If it's dumb and fun, then I'm fine with that.
Yeah, no, and it's
You know,
supposed to
it's
be
when
dumb. That's the
when you
point.
are trying to make a movie. Recently there was an article in the Guardian that was about somebody who watched all the movies that have a 0 rating on Rotten Tomatoes
Oh yeah, yeah.
to try and get a sense of like, what does it mean, right? There's a kind of a
Right.
cosmic message of, what is a bad movie, and they were saying that sometimes you have these bad movies where they had every intention of not being bad, they just have completely missed the mark, right? So like you have a movie like, remember X vs. Sever?
Oh sure.
Antonio Banderas and Lucy
Of
Liu,
course,
and how,
and,
like,
Lucy Liu, yeah.
and it's meant to be a good shoot 'em up mystery, but it's really
Yeah.
shit, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got a movie that what was it called? I don't remember what it's called, but basically, it was Adam Sandler's Western that he made for Netflix,
Oh yeah, I don't remember what it's called,
Which
but I
is-
know what you mean. Yeah.
which is one of the worst movies I have ever seen, even for an Adam Sandler movie. It was a movie that almost felt like it just didn't give a shit. And the weird thing is, when you see a movie like that has the funding to give a shit, that actually doesn't look terrible, but everything about it is just like a matter of fact, like almost barely funny. Yeah, that's a bad movie. Yeah, and they had so many funny people in that, and it still wasn't funny. And like, I don't know who that movie was made for, and I don't think anybody else does either, which is why it has the 0% rating. But that's the thing, is that sometimes a movie is meant to be good, and then sometimes it's meant to be cheesy funny, and it's just so... Yeah, I mean, what is Idiocracy? Idiocracy, to me, never felt like a movie that should have been as popular as it was, because the humor was so absurdistly dumb. But the message of that movie is so terribly important that it boosts all the comedy to this like level of it's almost like Idiocracy is like a comedy horror to me. That whole line where it's like, oh yeah, it's got electrolytes, everything a plant needs, right? Like shit like
Right.
that. I still say that to my wife. And it's like, yeah, it's these different elements that can make a movie work and make it not work. And also different time periods can also make things great and not great. 'Cause, we talk about classical movies that we love, not classical, but like movies that have become classics, and that when they came out they were flops. We go back to Blade Runner. Blade
Right,
Runner was a
sure.
flop.
Yeah.
And we love that now. Apparently, there is some sort of weird thing. I only read about this recently, and this is like an old man reading about stuff he doesn't understand. Apparently, there's something on TikTok called Book Talk, which is suddenly making people want to read and share books again. That's
Yeah,
all
yeah,
I
yeah.
know about this. But apparently, Barnes and Noble is all in on this, and they're like, yeah, books, guys, come on, books. And based on its interest, they're essentially going to build more bookstores for once, rather than continuously closing them.
Hey, well that's good.
And I look at that and I'm like, Jesus Christ, could this be like the one good thing that social media may have done?
Hey, it can happen.
But it's that kind of, and they're saying that apparently what it is that people are sharing older books that you don't normally hear about. And that's the thing. I mean, I've always talked about this. It's so hard to connect with older books that don't have a modern platform, right? There's so many books that are just gone that no one talks about anymore. I mean, for fuck's sake, Neuromancer, as much as I love that book, that is not a book that is in the like modern consciousness anymore, is it?
No,
I mean,
it's not
if
in
you-
the zeitgeist.
No, it's not. But if you want to know what the start of cyberpunk is, you know
But on any
it's-
cyberpunk list, it would have to be in the top 5.
it's clearly mapped, right? But it's the thing is that we lose these books. I mean, George Alec Effinger and When Gravity Fails, which is a fucking classic cyberpunk book. Nobody talks about that book anymore. George Alec Effinger is virtually forgotten at this point, and that's not that long ago, And so it is a weird thing to see so many authors lost. And listen, if we can have a logarithm that reconnects people with maybe past great authors, if there's even a chance of that.
Sure.
Although I will tell you a real funny thing. I took my daughter today. I took both my kids, but my daughter was the one to go. I took them to an actual comic book shop today. I discovered that near me there is a full-on old-school comic book shop where there's just, like not like a place that just sells graphic novels, like fucking comics. Comics goddamn
Yeah.
everywhere. Comics in boxes, stacked on top of each other, in bags, not in bags, just everywhere. It was amazing. My daughter said to me, she was like, how do you know what to read? And I was like, you just pick one up and start looking. And she's like, really? I'm like, yeah. And I was trying to think to myself, like, how did I learn to start reading comics? And I told her, I was like, listen, I was like, I no longer read comics because I prefer to wait till they're collected. I was like, but when I did read comics, I was like, I would pick up whatever I thought looked interesting, usually buy like 20 of them, right? Read them all, and then think, which ones do I want to find out what happens? And my daughter was like, that sounds like a lot of work. And I'm like, it is. I was like, but, we didn't have the internet then. And think about that, too.
Right.
There was no internet, so, like, having a stack of 20 comics was fucking amazing when I was a kid. But I was like, yeah. I was like, and then once you start to read different books, you start to pay attention to who the illustrators are and who the authors are, and then next thing you know, you start to pick up titles and go, oh, I know this guy. I like his stuff. And my daughter thought that sounded exhausting. And I was kind of like, well, what do you want? I was like, it's chaos. I mean, old school comic shops are a bit of chaos, which is why a lot of us,
course.
yeah. Whereas a lot of us now like our graphic novels, we like it all collected.
But that was also part of the fun, was
digging,
to
man.
pick up a comic that looked, you didn't know what it was, you just wanted to see.
Yeah, but also going to a comic shop and digging through the stacks to find old school issues that you wanted.
Yeah.
I used to love that when I was a kid. I've had some pretty good finds in these like old school comic shops. I used to have a first appearance of Wolverine. My problem is I'm not a collector in that way. So like, I had a first edition, or I had a first appearance of Wolverine. I read it. I held on to it for a while, and then I think I sold it at some point because I read it. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's my problem. Is when people are like, this comic is worth so much money. I'm like, I know, but I just wanted to read it. Like, issue 1 of X-Men, right? It's not that impressive. I know it's issue 1 of X-Men, and it's worth a lot of money. But it's actually really not that impressive a book. And like, it's that kind of thing where like because I don't collect based on like, the value of it. It's more the kind of the personal narrative value. Like there's they did a stupid off-shot series with Hawkeye. It's after he died. After he, not Black Widow. What's her name? Scarlet Witch killed him, right? And then when she dies, I think he gets brought back. And this whole issue is about, this whole book is, or this series was about him coming to terms with the fact that he's come back from the dead. And in one of the stories, he goes looking because he has heard word that Scarlet Witch might be back. And I remember I had this one issue from this series, and it's him in the mountains in like somewhere in Eastern Europe, and he finds a woman that might be her, but it might not be her. And there's just a weird sort of subtle mystery to it all. And they, the artist, who I can't remember his name now, did all these panels. So they almost looked like they referenced Klimt art, which I love Klimt art. And I just thought it was so neat. And I still have that. I still have this one issue floating around in my bookshelves. And it's because it is a weirdly contained story. And it's very well done, and and it has a narrative value to me. I go back and I read it now and then because it's just kind of this short, perfect little thing. But
Sure.
but it's worthless. It's worthless to everybody. And I think that to me that's what's most amazing about comics, where it's like some of these things are worth a ton of money, but the things that are worth the most to you very often are not worth anything to anyone else.
Yeah.
It's the comics that were important to you at a certain time, at a certain period, I really wish I had
comics, which you can't get collected anywhere. I love Trencher.
Oh, Poison Elves. You remember Poison Elves?
Sure. Oh yeah.
Those oversized issues. I think they have. I think you can get the graphic novels now, but you can't find those oversized issues.
I still have the one-off issue of RoboCop where he's on, RoboCop on the cover. I have that Lobo issue. I mean, it was just a single shot thing they did, but I don't know that it's probably in a collection somewhere, but I still
Yeah,
have
you
the
know
comic.
what?
I love it.
Those single shot books were always the best because you would never find those. Like it's so rare to have those collected. So like
Yeah.
was it Lobo versus the Authority? I think there was a one off they did of that. That was like its own little mini book. You know.
Oh
Like
wow, Level Cop is on the Kindle. You can read it. Look at that.
oh well, everything. Well, that's the thing.
Wow.
The electronic nature of things now. There's a lot of comics that are becoming accessible, right?
Yeah. That's great.
But a old school comic shop is an experience to have, especially in this modern day and age where everything is like, I could just look it up by the author or the title or this or that. To actually go to a comic shop and be like, I gotta dig. I think there's a weird kind of archaeology to it, isn't it?
There was. Oh no, there definitely was. Yeah.
There is.
Well,
But
no,
at the same
I mean,
time,
you know,
I
haven't
don't know
done
how
it in a
these
long
shops. I don't know how these shops stay open at this point. I mean, are there still enough people that are interested in facing that kind of bedlam?
You know what? There probably are. I think a lot of them too. They have enough of a. Because I know that there was. I assume it's the same now, where basically, you know, the publishers would send out the comics, and you could send back the ones you didn't sell, that type of thing, after a certain amount of time. So I think look, there's a lot less than there used to be. So it's probably one of those things where the people who are fans of that stuff are the fans of that stuff, and they will keep it in support. So
Yeah,
they probably honestly they probably make far more money in collectibles than they do in comics now. That's probably how they're staying afloat.
Yeah. I mean, they had some interesting old school statues and toys and things like that as well.
Yeah, it's probably the shit that's probably keeping them afloat is like signed Pokemon cards or Magic cards. It's probably what it is. Honestly,
They had a really cool skateboard on the wall. It looked like a chainsaw. That was pretty neat.
sure,
So,
why not?
but yeah, the weird experience.
Mm-hmm.
But in the realm of reading, I just want to. I'm not going to review this because I'm not done with it. But I wanted to mention it. I tell you that I'm reading that China Miéville book that he wrote with Keanu
you mentioned
Reeves.
it. Yeah, you mentioned that.
Yeah, was it the book of Elsewhere? That is a weird fucking book. That is a very strange book. You know how I often worry that we as a species are fucking idiots and that people are getting dumber, right? And that by and large they want writing to be more dumb, right? Not this fucking book. I gotta say, I like it when I pick a book up and I start reading it and I go, shit, I gotta look up some words. China Miéville is a very astute writer, and the concept of this book, I'd love to see it filmed because it is. Do you know anything about the idea behind this?
No, I don't think you really talked about
right.
it. But you mentioned you were reading it, but didn't outline. I
So-
don't think you outlined what the premise is. I don't think so.
So the idea comes from Keanu Reeves. So he had I think he did a book called Berserk, and I think that's what it came from. But the whole idea is that it sounds like it's the first, well, it's not the first man, but essentially you have an entity, a human entity that has been around for 80,000 years. And the idea being that this is one of the first Homo sapiens, a member of one of the first Homo sapien tribes. And his mother at some point basically called to the gods because they kept getting very nearly wiped out. And she did a very specific kind of ritual of things to call down the lightning. And her son was touched by the lightning, and since then, he cannot die. And so he goes into this berserk mode when he's in a certain level of combat. He can go into this berserk mode where his eyes basically turn blue, and it's like he channels the lightning, and he's unstoppable. He rips things apart, but he is insane when he's in that mode, and he will kill his own allies, right? But most of the time he's just a dude, and he has a funny memory where it's not that he forgets things, but if he doesn't need them, it takes, he doesn't think to mention them. So it's like, imagine this idea of having a library of 80,000 years, but you don't know what's important until it kind of comes up, and then suddenly you have a reason to access it in your memory. And what's fascinating is that this character, who they call B, they call him B or they call him Unut, but mostly a lot of people call him B. There's a whole science world built around him because he knows all this stuff that nobody knows. You know, like he knows about cultures that left no record, so they came and they went. And it's great because sometimes when they irritate him and he starts talking about this shit, he can start revolutionizing their vision of history in this very matter-of-fact way that says, you know, your culture's not as amazing as you think it is. You know, other people have studied me. There have been flying machines before. He's like, it all gets wiped out. He's like, it all gets destroyed. And I don't know where the hell the book is going. I'm about halfway through. I don't know where the hell it's going. And honestly, I don't care because it's such a weird ride. Like, he just recently in the book showed up with a pig carcass, right? But like a giant, angry, like, you know, like a war pig creature thing. Apparently, it's some sort of like not prehistoric. I mean, it is a prehistoric pig. And he brings in this corpse, and they're like, "Jesus Christ, did you kill a pig?" Which I thought was a really funny line because it made me think of Predator. And you discover that this pig is like him. That at some point, a creature may have brought down the lightning and made one of its piglets into a berserker like B. And they're the only two immortals on the planet that you know of. And what's neat is that it's kind of a weird thing. So when they die, when you destroy their body completely, right? So it's like, so the body can't heal itself. An egg forms. A big, weird, fleshy egg. And then the body is like birthed from it. Which makes no fucking sense. Like, there's a little bit of that in there, but China Miéville tries really hard to kind of like flesh it out and kind of make it work, and he does a really good job. I am quite fascinated by this, but what's funny is that I'm so much more fascinated by the history than the present. Like in the present day, you're dealing with this idea of how do humans deal with the fact that there's an entity that's been around for 80,000 years. And the thing is, this isn't new because you read all the Anne Rice books, didn't you? The vampire ones.
The vampire. I was going to say not all of hers.
Yeah,
but I read
so
all the vampire ones, and then Ramses the Damned, and
yeah. So you remember when Lestat meets the Queen?
Yeah.
And there's something deeply alien about her because she's so old. Right?
Yeah, he senses that there's something different about her.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that the main guy B, Unut, there is something so strange about the way he handles everything because he's seen it all before. This isn't new. Humans are transient, and there's this big thing where he basically agrees to work with what is essentially I'm not sure if it's the U.S. government, but he's essentially working with some government operation that is secret, and he is doing it because as long as he's working with them, and they are doing research on him, the idea is I'll work for you, but you need to find a way for me to be mortal. And I love it because they say, well, you want to die? And he goes, it's not that I want to die. He goes, I want to be mortal. I want to grow old and die naturally. I don't want to be here forever. And there's this deep exhaustion to the character. Like, when the book starts, it starts because one of the military people that he works with on this team tries to assassinate him, and basically builds like a bomb vest, and then has like silver in it and like crucifixes and salt and like all this shit that from different religions to kind of kill demons. And he basically walks up to Uno and almost like hugs him, and it explodes. And then and a few people from the team get killed, and then when they cut to Uno's standing there, and his entire chest cavity is open, and his jaw is kind of hanging weird, and he's just sitting there, and he's alive, and he's just so irritated. And there's just this deep like, yeah, this is what happens. He's like, humans don't trust me. He's like, they think they can kill me. They try all this bullshit, And he says to the one guy, I was like, yeah, you know, he tried this or that. And the guy's like, well, how do you know? And he reaches into his own chest cavity and pulls out like a piece of it to be like, that's silver. And it's like, yeah, it's not science, but it's not magic either. Like, it's kind of Myville is writing this interesting sort of middle ground. It's almost, man, it's almost very Hellboy-ish. Do you know what I mean by that? Where like,
Yeah,
it's
I got
not,
you. Yeah.
it's not quite science. It's not. It's, you know, there's something almost very like middle of the road there that you don't understand. But it's really enjoyable. And the more they talk about his history and his prehistory and these cultures that he's met that are gone, and it really, I mean, if you're a religious person, it's an incendiary book, because he basically says that, you know, all your doctrine is bullshit. He's older than everything. I mean, the guy's 80,000 years old, going back to the beginning of Homo sapien man. And like I said, I don't know where he's going with it, but it's such an interesting ride that I don't care. Like, literally, if this book just ends with them being like, well, I still can't die, I'm going to McDonald's, I'd be fine with that, because just occupying this weird world is so fascinating. And I would love to watch Keanu Reeves play him in a movie. I'm pretty sure he's supposed to be Keanu Reeves. So, like, it's neat because it kind of comes preloaded with headcanon. So when you're reading it, you're like, okay, this is what this guy looks like. He's Keanu Reeves. I'm good. You know, and like Keanu Reeves now, you know, slightly grayed, bearded, kind of long hair, you know, like very John Wick. But yeah, I just, you know, it was a bit weird at first, and then when I started to get kind of into this weird world, I really just started to enjoy the idea of just this guy who'd been around for so long, and he's not human. Like, it's like, you know, did you ever watch the end of the Capaldi run in Doctor Who?
No.
All right, so there's a girl in that series that Capaldi brings back from the dead. She's a Viking girl he brings back, and the stuff that he uses to bring her back basically brings her back forever. Like, this technology will constantly repair her, right? And as he meets her throughout history, she doesn't always remember him very clearly. And she keeps these journals, and he says, you know, do you not remember? And she says, well, she goes, the human body is not built to remember this amount of information. She goes, so I forget. She's like, I forget things. She's like, things fade away. And she kind of becomes almost different people over time. And it's this idea that, you know, the human body is not designed to contain, you know, thousands of years worth of memories. And that's why it's interesting, because you have a humanoid, a human-looking person who can contain 80,000 years worth of memory. You know, he is. At one point, someone says maybe he's a demigod, and maybe that's what it is. But it's this idea of what a person like this would be like, and how would humans react to it. And it's really fascinating. I've spoken about it far more than I already thought I was going to, because it's not a review, because I'm not done with it. So like, it might end and be absolute shit, but just as like a setup for a world.
Is this like a one-off, or is this like,
I think it is. I think it is a
volumes?
one-off. No, I think it's a one-off that they did together. To my knowledge, at this time, it's a one-off.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Or maybe Keanu Reeves was hoping that writing the book, someone would want to turn it into a movie. Right? And I'm not even covering a lot of the weird shit that's going on, because I mean, there's a whole subtext of like the military unit people that he works with, and then what a weird situation is for them to realize that, you know, all of human history is wrong, and to have a sense of what it is, and to be working with a guy that when he goes into berserk mode, he may kill your own people. So when he goes into his berserk mode, you need to not be near him, because he may kill you and everybody you know. But I don't know. I guess I don't know who they're fighting. I guess that's the other thing here, is that supposedly this unit goes into combat and they are fighting things. And I wonder if they're using him in the U.S. military as almost like a special forces type thing. But so far, I haven't actually seen what they do. They've talked that they do stuff, and otherwise it's the fallout from having some of their own people turn on them. But I don't know who they're actively fighting. Right? So as I'm saying, it may become it may go someplace and be terrible, but halfway through, it's just such a weird world that I'm kind of all in on. So I just wanted to mention it because I'd read some reviews and they were like, well, "This is not China Miéville's best book," and I'm kind of like, maybe, but I like the idea. I like this idea of somebody who's been around for that long, who's just kind of tired and has seen humans do it over and over again. And I think my favorite scene so far is when he's talking to these two scientists about how they're studying him. And he says to them, he's like, well, you guys aren't the first people to study me. And the one doctor is like, yes, but we're the most advanced people that have studied you. And he's like, I don't even know if you're the most advanced. And he's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, there's been other cultures. He's like, there's been other people who were advanced. And he's like, don't think that just because you can't find remnants that they aren't important. He's like, some things get destroyed and there's no sign of them. And you kind of sit there and you're like, yeah. And we've talked about this before, right? The whole first people thing, where it's like, how much of a technology would be left behind over a long enough time frame? You know what I mean? Like if there was an advanced culture that existed 80,000 years ago, fuck that. Our culture. If our culture stopped tomorrow, right? How long before there wasn't any sign of it left? Right? That like skeletal remains would be gone. I mean, the only thing left would be Greek stone, but even that, that over a certain timeline would get faded to nothing, wouldn't it? It's not like our construction.
Barely anything survived.
Yeah, like it's not like our construction's going to hold up. It barely lasts now. Everything is basically wood and drywall.
Yeah.
I mean, we're living in glorified tents to some degree. So,
yeah.
I mean, would there be? Hold on. Let's ask you.
Hey, if that asteroid Bennu or whatever hits the one that's coming hits us, there'll be nothing. So.
Oh, is that a big one?
Yeah, that's the one that they say it's a 1 in 64 chance or something.
Well,
actually, I don't think that's a planet killer though. I think that's more of a, if you're in that city killer, which ain't good, but. Yeah.
City killer. All right, let's see.
But the reality is we really don't know because we're going through extreme changes in climate too. So stuff that would have survived before may not survive even 50 years from now, depending on where it is.
Let's see.
So it's hard to say.
Some people have asked. I'm just looking really quick. Was it constant maintenance? Our skyscrapers and bridges will fall surprisingly quickly.
Yes,
roads and highways will be covered in floor in a few hundred years. In 10,000 years, the pyramids of Giza are megalithic statuary, and the rubble of our large cities will still be visible. Let's see.
Okay.
Those along the coast will be first to be swallowed up by erosion and vegetation.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't know how reliable even that is because...
Visitors would probably know we were here after 10,000 years.
Yeah,
after 10 million years...
Yes.
Okay, hold on. After 10 million years, there would most likely be nothing visible on the planet's surface that indicates we were ever here.
Yeah.
But an inquisitive visitor with the proper technology would notice some aberrations in the geological record. Sure. I mean, they would also know the amount of CO2 that we built up. Well, the foundations of our cities will remain as faint squares and rectangles etched into the Anthropocene layer of rock. Yeah, and that's the thing is we find that shit now, and sometimes we don't even know, what it looked like. We'll be like, well, there's faint remains here. There was a culture here. But we don't, we know nothing about them because they had no written records.
I would suspect that what will survive is the scarring we do to the planet, as opposed to our actual cultural, riches or whatever you want to call them. So they'll know, okay, these people dug into the earth or did things. They bombed. They find the craters to say, well, this isn't a natural phenomenon, but we don't know how they did it.
But it's the idea that, I remember there was a
Listen,
book
how
recently.
long did it take them to figure out how the pyramids were constructed? There's still debate over that. And that's not that old.
I mean, well, it's a blink in the kind of cosmic
That's
timeline.
what I'm saying.
But even still, have you seen the drawings that they do? So to show you how wrong dinosaurs could be, there's a scientist who basically takes modern skeletons of animals that we know and then applies kind of dinosaur logic to them and shows you what those skeletons would look like versus what they really look like. Have you seen these?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And I think it was a flamingo. A flamingo looked like a fucking, it was like nightmare fuel what that thing was, and they were like, no, it's just a flamingo. You know,
Right.
and it's like, and based on that, that shows you how wrong we might be about dinosaurs. And they're right, because just
Sure.
in the short time that you were born to now, they went from
dinosaurs
being
went from looking like giant snakes to
well,
feathery
giant hell
birds.
lizards to being
Yeah.
bird-like. Yeah. Did you ever see? Have you
Yeah.
seen the edit
The
someone did
animations
with
that guy's done
Well, the guy who took the scenes from Jurassic Park and
and put the feathers on them.
yeah, but
Yeah, that's
for
what I'm talking
the-
about. Yeah, no, they're great.
it's really-
I don't remember what
yeah,
the
it's
guy's
really
name
cool,
is, but
isn't
they're
it?
fantastic.
It's really
I
neat,
think
yeah.
he just released a new one within the last week, like his best one yet or something.
Yeah. So it's funny
Yeah.
how this changes.
Yeah.
But I don't think anything I don't think anything will be left behind. I think that time and space are just too immense. You know, it's like, think about this: where the dinosaurs lived on this planet. Various dinosaurs, not any one culture, but various dinosaurs lived on this planet for millions of years, right?
Yeah.
And all we have left is bones.
Yep.
You know, and like I always liked the idea that maybe dinosaurs were super intelligent and they actually had like a culture, right? But like, you know, at what point, you know, would we even know? I mean, for all we know, they could fucking
yeah.
talk. You know,
For all we know.
for all we know, yeah. So
Right.
I mean, maybe 80 million years from now, some other species will be digging us up, trying to make sense of the weird shit that we've done.
Yeah, they may have talked but been killed before they could figure out recording technology.
And that's why, like I said, reading this book is so interesting to me, because this idea of a human type person. I mean, like I said, it borderlines on magic, so I have no idea where it's going. But just the idea of someone who's existed for that long and seen it all, you know, and has seen so much that they just don't care anymore. And there's a part in that book where he tries to I think he tries to kill himself. It's really what it is. It seems like he's just done, and he walks to the bottom of the ocean and just kind of steps into one of the chasms and drops down. And there's this long description of how awful it is to drown when your body is continuously trying to keep you alive. So like how long he can last with that awful choking feeling and not die. And then that's when he discovers that, if he dies in one place, he can, what's weird is if he dies in one place, he can be reformed in this weird fleshy egg thing someplace else. So I'm kind of like, the fleshy egg thing is weird, but I'm curious to see how you make it work. And the pig hates him, by the way. That's the other thing that I thought was really interesting. The immortal pig hates him. Because apparently its birth was awful, and he was present for it, and essentially put the mother out of its misery. But as far as the pig's concerned, you killed my mom, right? I mean, that's the primal reaction. So like the pig hates him. So the only other creature that's even remotely been around as long as he has hates his ass, and they've killed each other many times over the years. And I'm kind of like, wow, that sucks. That's just the worst. I was like, but to that note, I mean, couldn't you really just have a barbecue endlessly with this thing? I mean, you're never going to run out of something to eat. It just keeps regenerating magically.
Sure.
Which makes
Why
me think
not?
of that post-apocalyptic X-Men issue where they eat Wolverine. Did you ever read that one?
Yeah.
Where it's like the end of the world, and I think there's like 3 X-Men left, and they start cutting strips of flesh off of Wolverine's legs. And
Well, the
one
nice part
character-
is it's always in good shape.
it's always regenerating, yeah. And how she
Yeah.
feels terrible because they feed him his own cooked flesh. I mean, that's got to be some kind of weird loophole there. Like you just keep eating yourself. I wonder what that.
I mean, seriously, you could.
Well, I know, but I mean, like, I wonder if you could keep regenerating. Let's start right there. I wonder how healthy it would be in the long run to eat yourself. Well, it wouldn't work because I mean, you would basically be living on a meat diet, and did you see the pictures of that guy? Yeah. You can't
guy
live
with-
off meat alone. His
Yes,
cholesterol
the
was like
cholesterol
like-
coming out of his skin. Yeah.
Yes, that's
yeah.
right.
You would have to be supplementing that with something
Yeah, of course,
because
But just not-
eventually you would have no nutrients left in your body from yourself.
yeah, well, that's what I would think. That eventually, like the meat would be no good because you just keep. It's like almost like
Yes.
you're recycling the same nutrients.
Right. You'd
Right?
almost have to. Yeah, you'd have to have
now
something else.
now we're getting into the nitty gritty of how a healing factor works.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So reading that book, it's fun. I'll let you know when I get to the end if it's still good. Yeah. And there's a comic too. I'm kind of curious to read the comic now, but because it's not written by China Miéville, I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce his name. I almost don't want to read it because I worry that in the wrong hands, I think that this subject matter could be very dumb. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
And I think that what it is that in the hands of what is actually a really great science fiction writer, it's fascinating. But I can see it done. I can see it being done very poorly. Like I don't want J.J. Abrams to tackle this. You know what I mean? So yeah. Anyway,
I wouldn't be too interested in that.
No. There's a subtlety. There's a subtlety that you want with these things. You know?
Yep.
So anyway, you have a movie project that you wanted to bring to the table today.
Yes. Lando and I watched another film in tandem, which now that we know we can do this, I will probably be starting to do this more often because I think there's some... Lando has already surfaced another movie that...
But you also know, I have rules. He knows that I have rules, which is I don't want to watch anything that's like 3 hours long because I only have so much time.
No.
And I'm also,
they will
I'm
always
also
be
not,
90 minutes or less.
Yeah, within the realm of 90 minutes.
No.
I'm also not looking for
I think 90 minutes is like the magic. No.
Yeah, I'm looking for
non-mindfuck
movies.
My goal is curiosities. Seriously, like
circus sideshows. Yeah.
You suggested a time-traveling Fulci film to me. And that, I don't think I've seen a Fulci film that's time travel. I've seen Fulci films. But,
yeah, I'm
not telling you, yes, my response was, oh my God, it's a Fulci film. You don't know what that means. I'm not
I don't know what that
you.
means. I was researching something about the movie that we actually watched, and that was linked off of another movie you might be interested in, which was about a household that gets robbed by a bunch of brigands, and then suddenly the people that they've killed come back to life, and they realize that they can control time through these clocks.
And that sounds wild. So that one, I'm going to go in cold. I think that's going to be our next one, and we're going to go into that cold and see what it is. But the fact that Fulci did that that's interesting to me because I'm curious what he does with that particular premise. But we're going to put that aside. That's anyway. We know we have a system now that works. So no, we watched Obsession, A Taste for Fear. Unfortunately, we were not. I wish we'd recorded a commentary to that because I think that would have been wild.
See, and here's the thing, real quick. I'm kind of on the fence about commentaries because when I know you're recording, I'm almost more inclined to say something, but I feel like when we constantly talk, we almost detract.
I'm not.
Well,
because there's parts of the one that we just watched where we're not talking, and I'm fine.
We
with
do.
That.
Yeah, we get quiet. Yeah, we get quiet because I'm trying to figure out what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
But like I always feel more inclined.
I don't think commentaries require nonstop chatter. I think some people like that, but I've watched ones where the person only talks when there's something to talk about, and I think that's fine. Yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah. So no, I would not say. Yeah, I wouldn't say you have to feel like you have to.
Honestly, what's funny is that the commentary for the Obsession would have been funny because the sheer amount of fucking nudity.
Yeah, I wish. Yeah. Anyway, so yes, the goal is they're not going to be long, and I'm not going to we're not going to watch every single movie I watch, but if there's something that's like an idea of a time travel Fulci film. Is really fascinating to me because he's mostly known as a horror director with certain very specific fetishes that I'm like, oh, how can you do that in a time travel robbery film? Okay. So I'm genuinely, I've never heard of this one as a Fulci film. So I'm really interested in how this, and it sounds like an interesting idea. So we'll put that aside. So the one we watched was the third film in the Forgotten Jolly Volume 7 box set. Which, as I said, I did not buy it knowing that this was the one out of the 7 box sets. Each of them has a theme. This is the only one with a theme to, okay, let's remix or reinterpret what Jollos or Jolly are. I had no idea about that when I started watching this. So now it makes complete sense because every one of these movies has done something different with the core elements of the formula. So the last one is a 1987 film, and the title is Sweets from a Stranger. And now I'm going to read the description for it because I think, again, I went into this thinking it was going, not knowing what the box set's goal was. I didn't figure it out till like halfway through the movie, and then I went, okay, wait a minute. What the hell is this? And then I looked at the box set and I'm like, oh, got it. So, here's the premise. 4 sex workers, which is inaccurate right from the beginning, but we'll get to that.
Yeah,
4
I
sex workers, band together when a brutal serial killer targets their community in an Italian city. As police and fellow workers, I like fellow workers, as if, it's like a union, which it does become, join forces with them, they take matters into their own hands to stop the murderer. Now, knowing the year, knowing that it's Italian, and when you look at like the trailer, you would think that this was a standard Italian mid-'80s slasher, or mid to late. And it starts off that way. And then it stops being that very quickly.
Well,
So,
for one, it's a league of prostitutes
Yes.
get together and form an investigative vigilante union.
yeah, they're essentially Batman Incorporated for sex workers.
Yeah, they are. They even incorporate the peeping toms.
Yeah, everybody. They're getting everybody.
Yeah.
So the movie starts out. This is what I mean about this movie is a complete misdirect.
And just up front, this is an important thing to know. There is very little nudity in this movie.
Very
which
little nudity, very
astounded
little
me.
gore, too.
Yeah,
Not
because
really
but
compared.
for a movie that's about a league of prostitutes, right?
Yes.
Most directors would take every opportunity to sex the hell out of this up, right?
We said this is the inverse of Obsession. Obsession slathers nudity to such a degree that it loses all eroticism and meaning.
Yeah, it's just funny at that point. Yeah,
It's a byproduct of the job. And the irony is in this film, where prostitution is the core job, so little nudity is present. And even when it is,
it's used in a weird way.
Yeah, there's only one scene where the nudity is directly related to sex. One time.
There's a breast that's been shot. So that's kind of a grisly scene, right?
But that's sexual violence.
Yes, and then later on, oh man, I'm trying to think. There is a topless scene at one point, but there's a scene where the prostitutes are trying to tempt the peeping toms to get them to help them, and that is probably the nearest sexy part of the movie. But it's almost absurd because you know what they're doing is they're just doing it to get their because they're doing it to get their attention, and you're like, okay.
And that is at the end of a scene where basically like Avengers style for the time, music is playing, and there's a procession of cars. And they line up as if, like on a baseball field almost, to basically form a voyeur alliance to say, hey, you can gawk all you want, and we're okay with it being a free show now because we need you to watch out for
Just keep an eye on us and report if something happens. Yeah.
Yes. They're basically transactionally saying, you can look all you want, but if you see anything weird, do something.
About this movie, the other weird thing about this movie is the fact that it fluctuates from what is quite funny to what is quite disturbing very quickly.
Now that's common. That's a Giallo staple, is the tonal flux is normal. You have absurd and very, very often highly violent stuff.
You asked me before we recorded, if I had been thinking about this movie, you kind of laughed about it. And what's funny is I did do some research things. There's a question that did occur to me, which I'll bring up later when we get to it.
Ooh, okay.
But this scene where the wooden-legged old prostitute gets killed. It's so sad. It stayed with me.
I told you that. I said this is the worst one.
Yeah, it's so. You're like, oh, why this woman? I was like, this.
It's very cruel in many ways.
It is this poor broken lady. Oh my god, when she's limping over. And then the murderer pulls the wig off afterwards. You're like, oh Jesus Christ! Yeah. And that's what I mean by tonal. That character in themselves is absurd because it's this old hooker with a wooden leg sitting by the docks waiting for her next John, and she's got this big blonde wig, and you're like, this is so silly, and then they kill her, and you're like, oh god, this is so sad.
Yes.
So yeah, the movie shifts quickly from one to the other.
So and again, the opening feels like every bit of a classic slasher, where we see a woman who's a prostitute, and she's picked up, or she takes a guy back to her house, and he leaves his watch there, and she decides to keep it, and he, for some reason, is gonna run her down with a car with it, and so he's chasing, and she's terrified. She's running. She ends up in the woods. Yeah, Gumball. And she ends up, he pins her, well, not pins her, but he gets her kind of trapped in one area. And then as his headlights are flashing, she sees a straight razor that a gloved hand, which is the classic black gloved hand, is holding. And so she's running. She ends up out on a clearing, and she sees somebody coming on a bike, thinks it's because somebody on a bike doesn't seem threatening. Sees this person, says, help, I'm being, chased down. And this ends up being the slasher. So our slasher rides a bike. This is the bicycle slasher.
Yeah, they make a bicycle ominous, which is funny.
Yes, and so she is then slashed in hilarious fashion. It's not a very good slashing scene.
It is quite honestly one of the most awful edited murder scenes I've seen.
Yeah, it's pretty shoddy in terms of the actual thing. And then the killer takes a captive bolt gun and shoots her in the stomach with it for no reason.
Which is never explained, really.
Which is never explained. Well, it's the prostitutes have a theory, but
you can
it's
interpret
never explicitly said. Sure.
Yeah.
So then we cut to a newcomer to the city, another woman who is from somewhere else, and she is corralled in by a group, the kind of local union of prostitutes, local 138. Pick her up and say, all right.
And the leader, is it the leader that looks like Rizzo from Grease?
Yes, the leader is, you thought it looked a lot like Rizzo, which she does. And this is, by the way, if you like Italian women from the 80s with big hair, if you're a Marisa Tomei, My Cousin Vinny fan, you will love this movie,
know, but
as I do.
The lookalikes in this movie are funny because Rizzo's in
amazing.
there. Then you got Lena Headey from Game of Thrones in there.
Yep.
And then you got Marisa Tomei from My Cousin Vinny in there.
Yep.
And what I mean, like they are, like, some of them are spitting image of these people.
Yes.
Like the Lena Headey one. I mean, that could have been
it's
her.
It's impressive. Yeah. It is amazing how similar some of these women look to other actresses that you would know.
But the other problem is that some of these women look really similar to each other.
Yes. It can be hard to keep track of who, because they change their hair at different points to look similar to the other woman's hair in the previous
so
scene.
early on, I lost people. I was like, wait a minute, who is that? I felt like an old man. I was like, who is that again? Like,
yeah, I think the modern film's approach to differentiating would have been, okay, one has a mole, one has a facial scar, they would have, Stella, who's one of them, has blonde hair, and that's the easiest way to pick her out because she has blonde hair. So they would figure out identifying features for them now. But in this movie, a lot of them are pretty interchangeable if you are not really paying attention. There was one who I couldn't tell who it was the first time I watched it, back and forth, and then this time I was paying more attention to it the second time I watched it. So this woman, Lena, is picked up by the locals, and basically they're like, all right, if you want to keep operating here, then you're going to be part of our union, basically. And the leader, Rizzo, basically tasks her with doing all these minor errands, one of which is taking her daughter, who she's a single mother, and the daughter knows she's a prostitute, and
is very unhappy about it.
Very unhappy. Yeah. And there's a point where, she's basically like, yeah, you're so unhappy, and yet you have all these nice clothes. You're fine taking my money and using it for stuff like this, but you're sitting here bitching in your diary about how my mom's a prostitute. She basically, at first, is verbally abusive as far as we know. And so Lena's basically running her around to different things, like, getting her groceries. She's taking the daughter to, the dentist or whatever. And in the meantime, we're seeing these shots of the killer with the black gloves. And so there's a point where Lena is out doing her night job, and a couple comes by on a motorcycle to pick her up, and she realizes that one of them is a woman, and she says, I'm not into lesbian shit, let me off. And so she jumps off the motorcycle, but the guy still, I guess, is trying to pursue her, or at least wants to apologize. It's never clear.
I'm not really sure, because he sticks with her long past the point that I thought he was going to.
Yeah, he basically tells the woman, it seems like the two of them are in some kind of like swinger or just kind of voyeuristic thing because they're talking about how it's a game. And so it seems like they've done this before. So he tells her to like, split, but we see her later with him. So they clearly didn't split. He just told her to go home. So Lena's kind of walking away, and he's kind of chasing after her, and they see a car, and the car's got a door open, and they find that it's one of the women in that local union who's been killed. She's had her throat slashed, and she's been shot with that gun in the left or the right breast. So there's a hole where her nipple would be, which is disturbing to see.
Oh, yeah, that's probably the most gratuitous scene in the movie.
It definitely is, as far as the sexual violence part. That is the most over-the-top one. And so she's still alive. They take her to a hospital. When they get there, she's dead. But on the way, she's trying to whisper, talk, or tell, somebody what's going on. And the guy is close enough to hear what she's saying, but we don't hear it. We just see her mouth moving. But when they get to the hospital and the doctors come out and say she's dead, basically Lena and this guy, I'll call him Matt Berry, Lena and Matt Berry basically split. They go in two different directions. They just run. They just bolt.
Well, because why would you stay? You don't know what happened. Yeah. You're going to get pulled into it. Yeah.
No, it's not their car. This woman's clearly been murdered, and they're like, "We're out of here," and they take off. And that's really the last of anything with overtly murderous or gore or anything for a long, long while. Up until the old woman dies. But that all happens in the first about 15 minutes. What I just described is all the first 15 minutes. The old woman doesn't die till midway through the movie. So this is, if you're coming into this as a warning, looking for a lot of slasher stuff, you will not find it. It is not here. This is closer to a character study or a dramatic film about prostitutes and their actual lives than it is anything else. It just happens that there is a murder mystery in the background that they eventually start coming together to solve. But this is not a over-the-top bloodfest where the murderer is, every 10 to 15 minutes is killing somebody else like you would expect in a movie like this. No. That's not this. Because you will get to know 4 or 5 of these women fairly well throughout the movie. And so eventually what they figure out is, okay, the cops can't figure this thing out. We're going to have to watch our own backs. We're going to have to, gang up, and we're going to have to look for this person because this is a murderer who is focusing on prostitutes.
Yeah, and they form a group, and it's a big group. That's the thing. There's a whole room full of them, and they all take on different roles and start, being cooperative. And this is the thing that made me look something up because I realized that the way that they handled themselves, it reminded me of something.
Okay.
Can you think what that might... does that... something else in pop culture. What does that remind you of?
Oh, well, I mean, you mean another group of people who are kind of policing things themselves?
Yes.
You mean like the... oh, God, what are the New York guys called? The Guardian Angels type of thing?
No. Something from fiction.
Oh, it's fictional.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Sin City.
Dame to Kill For?
The prostitutes. In general, because they pop up in different books. The prostitutes. Yeah,
like the Rosario Dawson types.
Yes, her group. Yeah. They form essentially a prostitute army. I mean, they protect themselves. Yeah. They have assassins.
Darling little Miho.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, holy shit! I was like, I wonder if this was an influence. Because this movie...
I remember you saying this is very Sin City-like as we were watching it, so I should have figured that out. Yeah, so you did say
I went looking to see if I could find any information about that, and there was no information whatsoever that this movie was an influence or had been seen by Frank Miller. But I just feel like it's... I mean, just the way it handles itself, and the look of them as well. Like the way these women dressed and things like that. It just feels like Frank Miller saw this movie. Well, even to the point where
the woman who I said, the Lena Headey character, is a dominatrix.
Yeah.
Much like the one character was in all the bondage gear. So I would not be shocked whether that somehow Frank Miller had seen this or something, because you're right. The operation of this is essentially they form their own police department. They do because There is a sketch artist. There's a point where they meet in a giant room, and at that point, there's got to be 30 of them in the room.
Oh, and they've got a special spray that if you spray someone with, knocks them unconscious.
Yeah. So they start calling each other, and they're like, we have to meet up, and we have to basically. And at first, I'm looking at the picture here, and there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. There's probably about 20 of them in the first meeting around the smaller table, where the Nadine, who's basically, like you said, maybe she's the madam of whatever the main place.
Oh, she's definitely the leader. Yeah,
she's the leader. She seems a little older than most of them, and she definitely has the kind of, all right, here's how it's going to run thing, and everybody seems to listen to her. So clearly, it's not a.
No.
Some of the other women
they
fight,
cooperate. That's the other thing that's kind of interesting is that this is not, there isn't massive infighting. There's no hate. Like, they quickly realize they need to depend on each other to not die.
Well, this is the thing, is in this first meeting, you can clearly see that there are women at different points in life. There are some who are dressed better, some who are dressed worse. There's only one black member, but there is at least a black member there. There's straight women. The only people we're not really sure if we get representation of are trans people, because there's one thing where you don't know about.
But they do mention them quite a bit.
Lena Headey could be a trans woman. We don't ever get an answer.
Yeah.
That comes later.
And doesn't someone say, I wish I were, you can charge triple or something like that?
Yes. Trans people trans prostitutes, which maybe this was a thing at the time, that it was a novelty. I don't know. I don't know enough about this to know whether this was based in reality.
Well, in general, I don't really know much about the prostitution institution.
I don't either.
In Rome in the 80s.
Right. So maybe it was more of a rarity and therefore more expensive. That's possible. I really don't know. So, but they do mention several times, that we're under. I think at that meeting they say we're under enough economic pressure from the trans prostitutes. We don't need this shit on top of it, which is a remarkable thing. But it also is it reflects the reality that they say the cops and normal people, they need us, but they don't care. Us getting killed means nothing to them, which is a reality. And that's why I like the fact that we have, if there's only one, but at least a black woman there, because historically, indigenous people, homeless women, prostitutes, minorities, when they get killed, they don't tend to get much press. They don't tend to have the cops banging down doors. It's, typically young white girls who are, at college and get abducted, and suddenly it's a 14-state manhunt. But if a streetwalker goes missing, well, she's probably asking for it, type of thing.
Well, these things happen.
Yeah, these things. And so they recognize that right away, that, okay, we have to work together because the cops. Also, this movie hysterically paints the cops as basically incompetent. They are buffoons.
The one cop seems so entertained by this whole thing.
Well, he says, you're better at this than we are.
You're doing a really great job. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, he's so entertaining. He's happy to have them there. He digs one of the prostitutes. And then the female cop ends up getting dressed up like a prostitute and hanging out with them on one of the cases.
Yes. So they get organized, and they essentially come up with a system where nobody's going to go on any...
And that's a lot of the movie right there. The organization is kind of the bulk of it.
The organization and then the hunt for this guy. So they basically get together and they're like, all right, anybody who gets picked up in a car, write down the license plate. Here's this spray that puts you to sleep. Nobody goes on a trick alone. We're all aware of where everybody is. And then there is a scene in the middle, which is hilarious, but makes sense, where they all drive their cars to a field with a bunch of hedges.
Yes.
And they all get out, and this is like a Marvel movie where they're all lined up, and they're standing in front of their cars.
And they open their coats.
Yeah, and they basically all start opening their clothes and like, all right, voyeurs, we know you're there, and we need some help, so you're allowed to look now, and we won't be upset that you're getting a free show. But if you see somebody who looks off or if somebody's being assaulted, then you have to tell us. And in exchange, here's some freebies. And they kind of, take their coats off and that type of thing.
But
and
it's so,
again,
honestly, it's so
comedic.
PG, even that. That's like Victoria's Secret catalog shit right there.
Oh, yeah. No. There's no real, I think there's one boob in the whole thing.
I say that impressed because they could have gone so far around the bend on this.
And you keep expecting it to.
And you keep expecting, and then they never do. And you're kind of like, wow, that's I'm impressed that you didn't go there.
Right. And so then after that, then we basically get back into these sub-stories where Lena and the daughter, the daughter it's her birthday, and she gets very upset because Lena's like, yeah, I'm not going to do your mom's errands anymore. And so there's a lot with the daughter, where the daughter and Lena have kind of formed this relationship, and Lena feels bad about kind of, saying, I'm not going to see anymore, and the daughter kind of runs out. And then there's another new prostitute who was a hairdresser until her business went under, and her husband's business is struggling. And she's sleeping with this guy who keeps talking about the fact that, are you sleeping with anybody else, or is it just me? And for the duration of the movie, she's only sleeping with him. So, and these are all kind of little, like I said, you get all this background and life snippets of these women.
And they try to give you a wide berth, so you're sitting there going, okay, well, who's the killer?
Right.
Is this someone that we know? Is someone we don't know? Is it one of these guys? Yeah.
Yes. And so at this point, you sort of even forget that the killer's around until, as you said, then we get this scene with the older woman who's at a bar, and she's talking about how she only sleeps with who she
she's
wants
not even
to.
at a bar. She's at one of these.
It's like an outside
these
cafe.
Street cafes. Yeah.
That's what I meant by bar. Yeah, like a street, some kind of street cafe. And she's got this long dialogue or monologue to this guy about, hey, I only sleep with who I want to. Nobody's going to teach me to be a whore. Look, they all want to unionize, like I need to be a union. And she goes back to her position on the dock, on the port.
Her stump
and these
on
guys
the dock,
come by. Yeah, she limps over to her little stump. And these young guys come by and they scare her with an iguana. And then she's talking to somebody off screen. And at first you don't know whether she's talking to herself, but then you see an image of the bicycle tire, and so you know immediately what's going to happen. And so then she's killed, and the killer goes to shoot her with the bolt gun, and it won't work. And because it won't work, in this fury, like you said, the killer pulls off the wig and just starts shredding it in anger, which is, it is clearly meant, well, I'm going to deface your corpse somehow. I can't do it with the gun, so I'm just going to do it by taking your wig off and shredding it. And this old woman is killed, and she doesn't, I don't know. None of the other women ever mention it because she's not part of their coalition, so I'm sure they're aware of it, but it's not really a central thing. It's just, I think, to remind you that the killer is still killing people. So then the rest of the movie, for a long stretch, is again just, you see this woman whose neighbors know she's a prostitute, and they want her to move out because now they're afraid she'll bring the killer back. They didn't really care about her, being in the building and being a prostitute, except that now there's a threat to them, so they want her out. There's this thing where a guy shows up and is trying to shake down Lena by saying I have to charge you for using your phone. And so now we get a sequence where all these men start getting assaulted and beat up by them because they basically said, they profile the killer by saying he probably doesn't actually want to have sex with anybody. He's doing this because he's like sexually repressed or having a problem, which does line up with actual, sexual, like serial killer profiling stuff. But the fact is, they meet in this room. And this is basically like in another movie, this would be all the cops getting together to try to, basically figure out how to pursue this killer. So you have the sketch artist is Lena Headey. The Stella, the blonde, she is the profiler. One of the other women knows a cop who's giving her insider information on what's going on. So they're forming this whole thing where they're going to start to basically profile guys, and anybody who does anything that vaguely fits the profile, they are going to beat up and rob, and then they go to the cops with a pile of wallets and passports, and they basically go to the cops and they present them all this evidence and say, here's the guys you want to be checking
these guys out. Yeah.
And the main cop, whose name is Inspector Giusti, is like, he's so bemused. Because they come in there, most of them are wearing, the only one who's not wearing a mask is Nadine.
They're wearing like superhero, like Robin masks.
Green Hornet masks, basically. Yeah, it is comical, but not played as comedy. And so they come in and he's like, well, you guys are doing a better job than us. This is great. And like his second in command is like, oh, where do I get the sleep spray? I just want to have it because, and it's not really remarked on, but even a female policewoman has to worry about more than a male policewoman would. Like there's all these little things that they don't necessarily call out, but if you're paying attention, there's all kinds of little commentaries on multiple things throughout this movie. Not putting aside the biggest one, which is just humanizing characters that generally in films are presented as one-dimensional whores. That's what you normally see a prostitute, especially in this time period. This is exceptional in terms of character development. I don't know that I've seen another movie where there are this many female characters who are all prostitutes that have this much depth. I can't think of one. There may be others. If there are, tell me, because I want to watch them. This is the most I've seen.
I think you've even got like lesbians represented in this.
Yes, Lena Headey and her girlfriend are lesbians,
and they work as prostitutes. Yeah,
there's nothing unusual or strange
but
or
they
deviant
live,
about
but
it.
they live together. They're close.
Yep.
They're it isn't. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in this movie that isn't done for. It isn't done for like the traditional. Oh, look, they're lesbians. Look, they're having
it's not titillation.
Sex. Yeah, it just happens to be that this is what they are.
Right.
You know.
So
Joe didn't know who the murderer was, which is important.
No, because normally in a movie like this, I figure it out pretty quickly. I mean, normally it is. Remember in Obsession, I knew exactly who it was, and
I thought it was the other assistant.
Right.
Because she treated her so poorly.
Yes. And that was where at one point I thought maybe there were two of them, but I knew the one guy was involved. I knew it
but you didn't know on this one either. And honestly, when it finally happens, I had no fucking idea who it was. And I definitely didn't think it was who it was.
There are good misdirects because at one point the hairdresser turned prostitute is going to meet the guy that she's sleeping with, and you see a man on a bike in the background, and you don't. And the thing is that the way that was set up, I didn't know when the first time I watched it. I'm like, oh, okay, is she going to meet the guy, and then the bike in the background is like
I thought they were going to be killed.
Yeah. Right. Well,
Both
there's a whole thing where they're in the car together and there's a noise, and you don't know whether it was the killer or not. You have no idea. So then we have a scene where Nadine, the head, like picks up this little kid, and she's like getting him a meal and giving him money to go back home. And I'm not sure whether that was actually her child or not, because it plays it.
I literally think she picked up a homeless kid or a runaway.
And that's so it could be. But again, it's all you get a whole scene where nothing is happening except she's taking care of this kid.
Yeah,
almost like Bill Murray and the homeless guy in Groundhog Day, except the kid doesn't die. But again, it doesn't. There's nothing about this that has to do with the murder mystery part. It's just we're getting more of Nadine and how she takes care of people. And now you start to understand, I think, why they all respect her and listen to her, because clearly she does care. Like there's more to her than just, I'm running the local brothel. Like you can, again, the thing I keep coming back to is the depth of the characters. And it's not hit over the head. It's just little actions. And you just see all these little snippets of their lives, which I really like. But as she's sitting there, she happens to notice that the guy from the beginning of the movie who was in the car with Lena is there with his girlfriend from the motorcycle, and they're having dinner, and she goes over and basically holds up the police sketch, the prostitute sketch, and says, yeah, this is you. I need to find out what the guy told you, or what the woman told you about the killer. And the guy says, all I heard her say was Stella, which is one of the names, it's the name of the blonde prostitute, the one who knew the hairdresser and helped her kind of get started in prostitution. And everybody immediately rejects that. Like, nobody believes that it's actually her. But at this point, we then see Lena gets a call from somebody and says, hey, I have a job that I was supposed to do with another woman, and the other woman got sick, but it's a lot of money, so I got your name from somebody. If will you help me out with this job? And she says, that's fine, but I want to meet up with you first, because they don't really know for sure if the person who called Lena was even a woman. At one point, somebody says, just because somebody's voice sounds feminine, it doesn't mean they're a woman. It could be a man. So meet them so we can all see who this is, and we can keep track in case this is a setup, which it could have been. So now we get to the end of the movie, and everybody's at a cafe. They're at a restaurant. And everybody's showing up, and it's just like a kind of classic thing where everybody's watching everything that's going on. So the cop and Stella are sitting there acting like a couple, and are actually starting to, like, become like the cop is hitting on her actively. He's like trying to woo her,
and she likes him. And she's
oh yeah, and it's sincere. It's not like he's using her or anything. He's actually very interested in her. Like you said, the dialogue is actually very good throughout this movie.
Oh no, the madam, what's her name? Was it Dina?
Nadine
Nadine has some of the best fucking lines in the movie.
Yes.
And there's a part towards the middle where she's talking about like their alliance, and some of the things that she says, I'm like, oh my god, it's such good dialogue. Like she actually does have some really good bits, which is funny because there's a lot of parts in this movie. So for someone to have a part and to actually have it be memorable, you're like, oh, she was really good. I can understand why these people did this movie, playing a bunch of prostitutes.
Yeah. But also, all of them are well written in that there are no cheap kind of, again, surface level characters. Each of these prostitutes is a distinct person. They all have different backgrounds. They all have different personalities. They don't all just feel like, oh, okay, there's one or two women, the rest are just whores. You know what I mean? They're all written very well in that they all have not necessarily trauma, but they all have the things that they're kind of hiding about themselves that define how they act and how they react to other people. And it's just, again, a well-written movie for character types that normally are just victims or kind of there for nudity.
Well, they're the punchline to the movie. We're like, oh, he's killed more prostitutes. Yeah.
They are typically served the least by the actual script, whereas this is inverting that relationship where they are actually the main characters. So they're all in this thing, and then the three of the women, which is Nadine, Lena Headey, and her girlfriend, are outside.
With
and
the cop, with the female cop.
And the female cop is dressed as one of them, and they keep remarking on, wow, you kind of overdid it there, because obviously she doesn't know how to dress subtly. And there's this whole thing where basically she's talking about how the cop says she can spot a trans woman immediately, and Lena Headey's like, really? Did you notice I am? And the cop's like, no, you're not. And then she's like staring at her crotch.
Oh, and the camera keeps...
Yeah. The camera is basically, it's going on her arms, I think, to see the arm hair, and like her hands to see if they're mannish, I think, because they keep focusing in, and then it goes to her crotch twice. And the girlfriend says, all right, I'll tell you the truth, and leans over and whispers to her. And we never find out what the answer is. So we don't know, which I actually think is
either
great.
There's a transvestite in the movie, or a trans woman in the movie.
Right.
Or there is a lesbian couple. So it's one or the other.
Yeah.
Either way, it's amazing that they're, handled as well as they are in a movie from the late 80s.
Yes, there's no demeaning, no joking, no nothing weird or anything deviant about them. They're just part of this group. This is what I mean is all of these characters are humanized to a degree that is highly unusual. Even in modern films is an unusual level of handling this very well. Not necessarily perfectly, but very well, especially for 1987. And it's an Italian film, which is typically a sleaze fest. So all of this is unusual.
Yeah, I mean, like the amount of not sleazy does really surprise me.
Yes. For what you read the description and see the poster, you think you know exactly what this movie's going to be, and it's not. So as they're sitting there waiting, there's different people coming in, and they're not sure if, like, there's a woman who comes in, and she kind of looks at Lena, and Lena looks at her, and they don't know if this is the person who called her. Like, they're trying to figure out who it is. And so as they're sitting there, the young girl, Rizzo's daughter, comes in, and everybody starts to kind of get on edge because they're like, oh shit, there's a kid here. And so Lena's like, oh, you have to leave. This is not the time. Well, I'll talk to you later, but get the hell out of here. And the daughter gets very upset and goes to the bathroom. And so right as she goes to the bathroom, we see that there's a bike outside. The cop sees it, but doesn't know what it is because they don't know about the bicycle. That's not a known fact to anybody. And so the cop sees it, and the camera zooms in on it. And so we know what it means, but the cop doesn't know. So nobody realizes. And right then, the guy that the hairdresser is sleeping with comes in because Stella, the blonde, the one that everybody wants to move out, she's thinking of selling her house, and this guy wants to buy it. And he comes in, and he's wearing black gloves. And the bike's outside. Oh, shit,
that's the killer. It must be.
And your immediate thought is, well, that's got to be who it is, because that's what all the signs are. So there's a point where Lena says, why is the girl still in the bathroom? And she goes to check on her. And when she goes in there, like the bathroom, there's something off about the bathroom. And at this point, the person who called her, they were supposed to show up at noon. And now it's something like 20 after 12. So they basically think that, okay, whoever this is either isn't showing up, or this was like they saw that everybody was there and they got scared off. And so she goes into the bathroom, and she then gets pushed into the wall from behind.
Well, hold on. Before you get there. She's asking if the girl's going to come out, and the girl's like, yeah, I'll be out in a minute. And when you look under the door, there's 2 sets of shoes in there.
Right.
And you're like,
and it's
and you're
taking
like,
a long time.
yeah, and you're like, what the hell's going on? And then she doesn't hear from the girl, so she finally goes in, and when she goes in and she looks, the girl's not there, and that's when the door gets slammed on her.
Yes,
and hits her in the head and knocks her to the ground.
I don't know if you noticed, when she came into the bathroom, there was a shadow of somebody behind her. That you know, you can see it for a second. It's very quick, so you probably missed it, but there was actually a shadow as she walked in of like somebody being behind her. And so, yeah, she goes in, like I said, 2 sets of shoes. Everybody else is outside, and they're basically like, all right, this is obviously a bust. We're going to leave. And as they're leaving, they're talking about because they're like, oh, so you're into Stella, huh? And he's like, yeah. And then he stops the cop and he says, wait a minute, Stella. And then he kind of he thinks, oh no, wait, the woman who was dying, what she was trying to say was spinning star. Now, the Italian word for star is Stella. I don't know what the word for spinning is, but that actually lines up because, yeah, she was saying Stella and they assumed it was the name, but she was actually describing the word for star. And so now we cut back to the bathroom, and Lena's on the ground, and she's like all...
Explain what a spinning star is.
Well, I'm going to. I'm going to in a second. So Lena's got like this foggy thing happening, and you see like a weird... It almost looked to me like, at first, like it was a bunny mask.
It was like a bird mask or some shit.
Yeah, basically this figure is standing over and like,
yeah,
you're a whore, and like,
and they're wearing a Donald Duck jacket.
Yeah, pretty much like a sailor outfit.
Yeah, with like a weird tutu skirt almost.
Yeah, which I don't know if that's supposed to be a New York Ripper reference because the killer in New York Ripper had the Donald Duck voice. I don't know, it could be.
Maybe, yeah. And they're basically going to kill them.
Yes, and so then we cut back to the cop, and the cop realizes that what they were saying was spinning star, which I didn't know this prior to watching this movie, but apparently a spinning star is another name for a child prostitute. And so then they run back in because the cop says, that's why we didn't see anybody. The killer's already here. Bursts in, grabs the killer, who turns out to be Rizzo's daughter, with the bolt gun and just narrowly misses shooting Lena in the head, and pulls this stocking off her face, and she's like, her voice changes.
She has like a different voice with the mask is on, and when he pulls it off, it changes back to a little girl.
She goes back to like a kid's voice, and like she looks traumatized. And so then we cut to the hospital because Lena, hit her head. So she was, they took her to the hospital.
So she's in the hospital with her team of prostitute detectives, and they're all smoking like chimneys.
And they're all smoking, and the nurse comes in and says, hey, you shouldn't smoke that much, but doesn't tell them to stop, really. And so they're watching TV, and on the TV, they're basically interviewing a woman at a psychiatric institute. And what you find out is that Rizzo was basically prostituting her child to a select clientele. And it lines up with some of the stuff the daughter had said. There's like a double meaning to it where she's like, oh, my mother thinks that we're better than everybody else, so she only lets me hang out with certain people. And it's what they mean by certain people is the Johns. So, and the girl has developed like schizophrenia because she's too young to understand the difference between sex and affection, and her mother was abusive. The mother has killed herself in jail, and so now the girl has been institutionalized. And one of the things
like I said, it goes from funny to fucking depressing, like so quickly.
Yeah, it is fucked up because this girl is clearly going to probably be in this place for quite a while, and her mother was obviously more abusive than even we knew. But again, it lines up with, because the mother early on says, you're no better than me, don't think you are, you're the same as me, and you don't know what that really means. Like, it's not explicitly spelled out.
No, but it makes total sense after this, yeah.
It does. And so throughout the movie, we hear that Lena's mother thinks that she's an air flight attendant, that she's a stewardess on a plane. And like when she's in the cafe before the daughter shows up, she starts to write a letter to her mother saying, listen, I'm going to tell you what I actually am, that I'm not an air flight attendant. And so while the news report's going on, the news reporter gives her name as somebody who helped,
it basically says a prostitute named so-and-so. Yeah, right. And they realize that they've outed her to her mother.
Correct. And so at the end of the movie, basically we've got Fox Force 5, where we see these 5 women standing there.
The end of it. Yeah, I think in the commentary, or us talking, you'll hear me say that I thought that the end of this movie made it feel like it was a pilot for a fucking prostitution detective series.
Oh, it easily could have. I mean, this it does feel exactly like that. I mean, even the way they're posed, It is literally where I said, "Oh, look, here's the title card." Da, da, da,
yeah, the title
up,
card should have popped up
clear.
just then. Yeah.
Yes. Right. So basically, the end of the movie, they kind of all go their different ways, and then the last thing we see is there's two things. First, we see that the cop and Stella are together now. They apparently have gotten together, so Stella kind of gets a happy ending.
Yeah,
and then the last
ending
thing we see,
but the ending is quick at this point.
It is. It's very fast.
Yeah.
And then we see Lena go into the house where her mother is, and she just says, "Hi, Mom," and then the movie ends. So we don't really know. Obviously the mother knows because we saw the mother hear the news report, and then the movie ends.
No, it's interesting. It's definitely an interesting flick.
I thought it was. I mean, when I called you, I was raving about it because I'm like, this fucking movie is not at all what I thought. Holy shit, we gotta watch
and
this.
I think that's what it is.
Man.
Is that you go in expecting one thing, and it gives you something else entirely.
Yes,
and that's what's kind of fascinating about it,
Yep.
And like even when it uses any level of sexuality, it's so specific. Like I guess I can't reiterate that I am impressed that they didn't just sex it up, because they could have. If this was an American movie being made around the same time, there would have been so much nudity in this.
Well, there's other movies at the time that were of this type that were doing that. I mean, New York Ripper is well known for, having gruesome, exploitative murders. So this feels like somebody was watching those things and wanted to specifically make something that was the opposite of it. It feels like a response to those types of movies. And that's why I think it's really... I mean, look, this is one of the better box sets I've bought since the Polish film, 4-film set. Like, this box set I would recommend, especially to people who are well-versed in these types of movies, because these are basically doing something... The core elements are all there. There is the black glove killer with a gimmick who, that is kind of a... There's the mystery to it. Like, all the core elements are there, but what sets it apart is all the characters. Because these are all the characters who would be in one scene to strip, get fucked, and get killed, and you'd never see them again. And instead, the nudity is, as you said, extraordinarily restrained when it even shows up. They actually are proactive. They don't just sit there waiting to be killed. They decide to go on the hunt for this guy. Very organized, like capable, and they all are different. They're not all the same woman. They all have these very distinct personalities and ways of operating that allow them to all work together. They recognize what the threat is. They know that society doesn't care, even though, as they keep saying, yeah, they need us around. Like, we're never going to go out of business, but they don't care when we get wasted. We're nothing to them if we're not being used by them. So they recognize what their position is, but rather than just, sit there and cry about it, they're like, no, we're not just going to let this guy wipe us out. The cops can't handle it. We'll take care of it. And they do.
Yeah.
So I think the movie's great. So I would recommend it to anybody. But like I said, this box set in its entirety, I would recommend to anybody who's, I don't want to say tired of the formula, because I love the formula. Giallo films, I don't care if they're by the numbers. They're always delightful when they're done well. I don't care if I can figure them out right away. But each of these movies gives something different. I mean, Obsession in this movie could not be more different, but their core premise is the same. Mystery killer with some kind of specific reasoning for what they're doing. That element is the same, but they could not be more different films, not only in terms of what they are and how they're made, but also the way that they change the formula. So this box set is fantastic. And any of these movies I would recommend. I kind of wish we'd watch Dagger Eyes as well, but whatever, that's fine. I would say Obsession and this movie were the better of the three. These two are... Dagger Eyes is fun, but it's not as outside the box as these two with such, I think, successful results. I really, really like these two movies quite a bit because they are doing something so unusual for the formula. So...
Well, I have a weird closing thing for you that I thought you might enjoy.
Before you get to that.
Oh, yeah.
200 hours later.
I know, but we're right on the footsteps of the end.
Oh, I have to adhere to the, specific,
I know. So recently, YouTube has the thing where it'll automatically play another video after the video you watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you have to specifically stop it so it doesn't.
Yes.
The other day, I was listening to some music on YouTube. I was listening to music. You know, sometimes you listen to music on YouTube before you buy it. You want to listen to the whole thing, right? I had some stuff
Sure.
that was playing on there, and I was busy like cleaning up my office, and I realized it had gone to some other music that I don't normally listen to. So I was like, oh Jesus, what is this? And I got to the screen, and I was about to close it when I noticed something very specific on a T-shirt that somebody was wearing. So there's a music video by, I guess her name is Charlie XCX.
Oh yeah, XCX
Right?
I
Yeah.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and the video is called Guess. Was it Billie Eilish is in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, like, because I had it on and I was like, what the hell is this? And then I realized that the main lady, Charlie, is wearing a T-shirt with Aphex Twin on it. And a very specific Aphex Twin. It's the big-breasted supermodel body with
Sensational.
Aphex Twin's head on it. And I was like, holy shit! I was like, that's such a weirdly like, you don't accidentally put that shirt in a music video.
Oh yeah,
Do you know
I'm
what I
looking
mean?
at it. Yeah, I'm seeing
Yeah,
it
you
right
see
now.
it. Yeah. And
Yeah.
like,
Wow.
it's if you freeze frame, she wears it the whole video.
Yeah,
You
no,
know?
it's on the easiest, the clearest view that's easiest is go to 1 minute 27 where she's walking with Billie Eilish and she's got the shirt on.
Yeah. But I saw
That's
that.
the
And I was like,
clearest
holy shit! I was like, it's fucking
Wow.
Aphex Twin. I was like, it's
Wow.
amazing that this guy and his music, like, that his presence is still kind of there in pop culture.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm looking,
because like I said, no one in a music video just ends up wearing something for no reason. So the fact that she's wearing this shirt with Aphex Twin on it, I mean, there's no logo, but anybody
No,
who
but
knows,
it's clearly the window
knows.
licker.
Yeah,
Window
exactly.
licker like cover.
Yeah, so I thought that was
And
really
nobody in
funny.
these comments has mentioned it. I'm looking.
No.
Nobody's picked it up.
Nobody did. That's why I wanted to share it with you. I thought you'd find that funny.
Wow.
Yeah.
I cannot believe that nobody knows who this is, and yet she does. That makes you wonder,
Apparently.
does she? Is this
Or the
just
person,
an accidental thing?
or the person who dressed her does. I don't know. But I mean, that's a very specific image to have on a.
Wow. Oh my God. There's a comment that says, whoever picked the clothes for Charlie gets it. Holy crap, the intro. But nobody's mentioning what the shirt is.
Yeah.
Nobody, and there's multiple responses, and nobody's like, yeah, that's Aphex Twin, Oh God, do I have to be that person? Oh,
You might have to be.
I think I might have to be because nobody in here is mentioning this.
Well, you know me. I have a strict do not engage policy, so.
Oh, I don't know if I can hold. I don't know if I can hold it off. I mean, I don't have to do it mean. I could just put in there and be like,
No,
plus one for the
it's
window
not a
liquor
mean
shirt.
thing at all.
No.
It's just hey, that's Aphex Twin.
Like, and to be clear, I'm searching for window liquor I searched for window or Aphex and nothing. There's nothing.
No, I mean it.
And I
listen,
mean, there's so many comments.
we were talking about like authors going out of style and things like people forgetting them. Like Aphex
Yeah.
Twin is not well known anymore.
40,000 comments, and I have yet to find anything on it yet. I mean, how?
Yeah.
How?
Well, I leave you with that amusement.
Ah.
Yeah.
How?
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, they're all so caught up in. Oh, wait. I saw it. Yes.
Oh, somebody
hold
saw
on.
it.
Yeah, the Aphex Twin T-shirt. Okay. Yes, there's one.
Sorry. so
Whoever
someone
styled
finally
the
said
Aphex
something.
Twin T-shirt needs a raise. Okay, so yeah, I had to go way down to find one though. I mean, I was scrolling. Okay, so somebody. All right, my job is done. Whew.
There you go. Yeah, but I mean,
I
it's
was
just
gonna
funny to see that subversive techno
Yeah.
entity pop up in what is a very pop culture music video.
And that you found it accidentally too.
I was gonna shut the fucking thing off because it's not really my thing. So I was like, "What the fuck
Wow.
is this?" And then I saw the shirt, and I was like, "Wait a minute." I was like, "I know that happy bearded fucking face." It's
That's
like,
amazing. Yeah, so far though, only the 2 comments, just the
Yeah.
2.
Well, there
Wow.
you go.
But hey, that's okay. Thank you, person. I didn't want to have to be the one to do it.
What is it? The idea is still out there.
Wow, that's great.
God, how old would Aphex Twin be right now?
Oh,
Gotta be like in his
he's
60s.
He's probably in his 50s. He's not that much older than us.
Oh, is he? All right. I thought he was.
He was pretty young. He is. I mean, I don't know if anybody 53. If that's but that's about what I would expect. I saw a picture of him recently, and that looks about right. If that's his, I mean, I don't know if his 1971 may not be his actual age, but he's not in his 60s.
If these are actually him,
because you have to remember when we found him, he was still pretty young.
I love this one picture where they've put this giant fucking monster face on him.
There's so many great images of him.
Oh God, man! You should really try reaching out to him. He is just weird enough. He is just weird enough to talk to you.
No, go look. If you go look on YouTube for Aphex Twin, the thumbnails are unreal.
Oh, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way,
man.
His logo is still one of the greatest logos that has ever been created. That's one of those where I know there's a story. It was somebody. There were a couple revisions of it, but man, that logo. That's like the guy who did the I Heart New York logo on like a napkin and nailed it in the one shot. Like that is just so perfect.
Well, it's so iconic, you almost forget that it's even his.
But it's such a, not only that, but yes, you do forget, because I have seen that logo and people don't know what it is.
Oh yeah.
But it's also just somehow captures his weirdness and his kind of just off to the leftness thing so well. Yeah.
Well, yeah, like I said, you never know. He's just strange enough to actually talk to you, especially since.
Yeah.
Oh, would be a good way to talk to Aphex Twin. Go in through your synth people.
I could try
to see if he'd
listen. If anybody listening has an in, please tell me. I'd love to talk to him. I mean, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I'm so fascinated by just his general psychology towards all of this, because I mean, he seemed to have such a subversive way of dealing with being any kind of famous. I mean, his most popular video, I think, is Window Licker, and it is such an indictment on like the MTV culture.
Absolutely.
So yes, it'd be interesting to kind of get his. I mean, has he written anything? Like, has he ever really?
He's been interviewed. There was a book recently that came out that I have to order about him.
Yeah,
it just came
I'm
out like
so
this
curious.
year, last year. Let me see. I've had it on a list to order, and I just haven't done it because I'm an idiot. Here it is. It's called Aphex Twin: A Disco Pogo Tribute. Yeah, 274-page book with images and background.
I'd be curious to read that.
It's not even expensive. It's like
just to get an idea of like what his mindset was.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like, yeah. I mean, that was an interesting era of techno music anyway, because it was kind of everyone was writing their own rules, and nobody knew what was going to stick, and it all kind of went off in so many weird directions.
Oh, and that's the book that has the guy who designed the logo and like his revisions of it and stuff too.
Oh, interesting.
I have to get it. I've been meaning to. It's only like $30. It's not expensive.
This is like a tabletop book type thing.
Yeah, this is by apparently these people, Disco Pogo. They did a book on Daft Punk. That was their first one, and it was very well received. So this is their second one.
Okay.
So yeah, it's 250 pages, and it's got like, different pictures of them.
Disco
and stuff like
Pogo, Aphex Twin. Yeah, you know what? I'm fucking curious to read this, and I don't normally give a shit about reading about famous people.
No, but he's such a wacko.
Yeah, well, it's it's the way he has. It's the way he has dealt with the public that fascinates me. The way he has presented himself, because it's the whole. you see photos of him, and for a longest time you'd see photos of FX Twin and be like, is that him? I don't know if that's him. Has he manipulated his face? I don't know. Like, this is someone who sold himself on his music so thoroughly that you didn't even know if who you were looking at was him or not. You know what I mean? Like I identified him through the swimsuit body with the weird head. That's based on him. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's it'd be fascinating to understand a bit of the psychology, especially since how deeply strange some of his music is. Fantastic, but deeply strange some of it.
Well, like you said, as far as like I don't normally buy books about people either that like this that I care about, but this is the same person that is only the second vinyl record I've ever bought just because I want it, with his artwork on it for the Selected Ambient Works Volume 2.
Oh my God, Selected Ambient Works Volume 2 is still one of those strange albums that when I listen to it, it elicits I feel
visceral,
that music in my
physical reaction.
Yeah, I feel it in my body. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like it makes me feel weird.
I know. Well, I said, that's why when they basically came out with the 3 different versions, I'm like, I'm buying them all. Fuck it, I want it all.
There you go.
Cassette, vinyl, and CD. Just give me them all.
Well, I figured I would share the music video thing with you. I thought you'd find that.
No, that's great. That's wild. It really is. I mean, that's crazy. But yeah, wow. I'm just glad somebody mentioned it, because otherwise I'm like, well, my next thing is I got to log into YouTube to go in the comment. I cannot let this stand.
And I'm curious as to why that T-shirt. Why put that artist in that T-shirt in this music video?
I think Charlie XCX is British. I have a feeling that this is probably the equivalent of somebody wearing like a young artist having a Roy Orbison shirt now, where a lot of people won't know necessarily who Roy Orbison is, but within the music community there's a recognition. Like if you're doing a rock video and you wear a T-shirt with Roy Orbison or something.
And it's not like, and the image isn't covered in any way. I mean, that image is easy to spot. If you know what it is, you see it right away.
I think that's the thing, is this is meant for people who know to recognize it, and for anybody else to think it's just a weird shirt, but maybe that leads them to think about it. But I think Aphex, there's been a bunch of stuff around him in the last like 2-3 years, like the reissue of.
He isn't like quietly producing music, is he? I wonder.
No, he just came out with an album.
Well, I know
that.
that.
You mean like for other people?
Yeah, I just wonder what he does when he's not.
Well, I know he sold his like sound effects banks. Lots of people buy them. He actually has a lot of those patented, and you hear them pop up. So my suspicion is that he's creating sound banks for people. He probably is working with people, just not. I mean, he's gone by so many different names. How would you ever know? You know
well,
what I mean,
there's got to be some record at this point. We live in the information disinformation age. It's
okay. All right. Okay. If somebody, let's say you were an electronic musician or somebody, and he comes to you or you go to him and say, I'd like to use this, and he says the condition is you don't tell anybody I'm involved because I just don't want the fame. I just don't want this.
Well, I mean, it does.
You're going to sign that contract.
Yeah, it does seem like something he would do. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So you say that and say in this age, well, not if the people who actually respect him, then you wouldn't say anything.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a list of the stuff that he's been a producer on that's not his.
That's what I mean is I don't know.
What does he produce? Yeah, I'm trying to see if there's.
I mean, some of his aliases didn't get decrypted for years after the fact.
There?
So it's,
is there an IMDb for music at this point?
I mean, there's Discogs and stuff like that, but I don't know if they have what you're talking about that they would know.
Let's see. Let's see what the wikis have to say, because I mean, sometimes you get pretty OCD people on here who dig.
James is recorded as AFX, Blue Calx, Bradley Strider, the Universal Indicator, Caustic Windows, Smudge Face, GAC, PBOD, standing for Phonic Boy on Dope, Polygon Window, Power Pill, Q-Chastic, Dice Man, The Tusk, Soit PP, and user 18081971. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. In 2001, he commented on speculation connected to many anonymous electronic artists. A lot of people think everything electronic is mine. I get credit for so many things, it's incredible. I'm practically everyone, I reckon, everybody and nobody.
That's what I mean. Is that it's the everybody and nobody effect that somehow got cultivated around him.
Yeah. Yeah,
Your guess is as good
it's
as mine.
probably impossible to know, because it's very possible that he licenses things through a different name, and people who don't know. I mean, how would you ever really know? Because, like I said, if his deal with people is, I'll help you with something, but I don't want my name on it for whatever reason, and it could just be because he's, not a fame seeker. That it's very possible. There's lots of stuff that he's been involved in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Artist, producer,
Well.
and DJ. I mean, it says producer, but of what?
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah, if he is producing. I mean, you see that where people end up producing a lot of this stuff on the
I mean, it
side.
says he's collaborated with Bjork, Radiohead, Nine Inch Nails. So I don't know in what way. I don't know.
Has he done? Hold on. Has Aphex Twin done a song with Bjork? This I must hear.
It said there.
I've never heard of this, so let's see. Aphex
Bjork
Twin.
and Aphex Twin. We send each other songs all the time. The two artists toured together in 1995.
No.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Oh
And
my
haven't made
god,
friends ever
I
since.
missed that. Holy shit.
Yeah. Okay, so all right, so here's this is what I thought maybe. All right, so she says that he told her about a dictaphone that she used to make a song. So he didn't produce it, but he was like, "Here, what you're trying to do, maybe use this."
It looks like they agreed not to collaborate because they viewed and approached music in such different ways.
Well, see, and but
Yeah.
the fact that they suggest things to each other, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Apparently,
did he directly
"Come
produce?
to Daddy"
Oh.
is one of Bjork's favorite Aphex Twin songs.
I don't doubt that at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and Aphex Twin music has gotten so bloody weird now too that I'm sure he probably enjoys that.
Yeah.
Well, there you
So,
go. There's a little bit of the past seeping into the present.
And just so from what I know of like people who are in the synthwave thing that I've talked to, there is a lot of like non-production production where somebody will be send somebody a thing and say, "Man, I'm really struggling with this." And this person will say, "Well, why don't you try this?" And that solves the problem. But they're not going to credit them as a producer. They were just sharing ideas.
Yeah.
So is there probably a lot of that? Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Well, hey, whatever. I'm just glad he's showing up on Young Artist shirts. Good for him.
Still relevant.
Good
He's
for him,
still
man.
relevant.
He's still relevant,
Yeah.
which is great.
Yeah,
I
and
like
listen,
people who are middle-aged still being relevant.
Window Liquor is still a fantastic video. So is Come to Daddy.
So's Come to Daddy, yeah.
I mean, and the thing is, there's videos that get very dated, like
Selected Ambient Works Volume 1 is every bit as good as 2. It's just a different album. I mean, those are two of the best.
completely, yeah. But I'm saying, like,
ambient albums
music
ever
video
released.
wise, when I watch Window Liquor, that video is still prevalent
yeah.
today.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yep.
and his music is so strange that it kind of stands outside.
Right.
Like it never quite fit
It
in
is-
with the
it is
techno
timeless
that was going
in the
on
most part.
around it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
It's outside of the it doesn't fit in most of it with any particular trend. The ones that do are the ones where it's not under his name. That's what you find. Is some of the stuff that's more kind of, oh, I know what time this was from, are the ones that aren't Aphex Twin. They're like Polygon Window or Power Pill, that type of stuff. I think he was smart where he realized, okay, these are of this time, so I'm not using my direct name on this. And so he put a different name on it.
who knows? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I am curious about that book now. So thank you for that.
Okay. Sure. Yeah.
And I guess that brings us to a quiet landing then.
It does, everybody. You have plenty of stuff to go enjoy your weekend with. So go forth and do that. And yeah. If you see Aphex Twin shirts in a video and nobody has commented on it, be the first, because it's a smart thing to do and people will like you for it. So thank you to the two people who did on that one, because you saved me the trouble. On that note, have a wonderful weekend, and we'll talk to you again next week. Visit OzoneNightmare.com to subscribe to new episodes, browse through our back catalog, or to find links to support the show. Follow @OzoneNightmare on Twitter for the latest episode postings and other show information. If 280 characters just isn't enough, you can always email us, theozonenightmare@gmail.com. The opening theme for the show is provided by Heartbeat Hero. The closing theme is provided by Ogre. Please visit and support these artists using the links in the show notes for each episode.